this district and the benefit of all of our community and fellow citizens. And the Coorong District Council members acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land and waters, the Ngarrindjeri people whose ancestral lands are on which we meet today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people to country and pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all First Nations people. Thank you. Item 1, councillors, is apologies. I have 2, Councillors Ling and Councillor Bland. Number 2, acknowledgements. First, I'd like to just welcome Matt. I think it's your first formal meeting here, so as our new Director of Roads and Infrastructure, so welcome. Secondly, good for him coming into this job. We've received an email which we've decided we should read out in this forum and acknowledgements, and it's from the Nagel family of north of Tailem Bend, and it just says, Robert, Trevor and myself, so that's Sue, would like to acknowledge and offer out a huge thank you to the Coorong Council for listening and acting on our raised concerns re the safety and maintenance of Orland Road following 2 severe vehicle accidents. Bridget, the reconfiguration and resurfacing of the area of Orland Road organised by James and repaired by Derek, Ken and others is amazing. The road is very safe and visually open. Anyone can see other vehicles now on the road. James met with us and another farmer, listened to our concerns and suggestions on how the road could best be improved, and was very appreciative, and we're very appreciative and thankful for his time. The council workers that reconfigured and repaired the road, Derek, Ken and others, were very professional, knew how to do their job and communicated the plan at every step. These council employees are great workers and we wish for them to be congratulated and thanked. It was our pleasure to be able to help the council by leaving the council equipment locked in our paddock when the work was completed. So that's the breadth of that. So thank you to the family for that. I might just add, just prior to this meeting, for the public's benefit, we had a small ceremony to acknowledge an retiring employee of council, Ian Appleton. Ian drove a patrol grader all of his time with council, and that's over 40 years. And so I thank him very much publicly for his service, and we just did in a small ceremony. And I know that they're having a ceremony down at the depot later this week. And this letter here from the Nagel family will be read out there as well. So that's very kind of them too. Okay, thank you, councillors. I've moved on to number 2, confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting, including confidentials on the 18th of May, 2021. Can someone move that way? Councillor Qualman, you're moving that way. Councillor Jentsch is the seconder. Any discussion around them, the accuracy only? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Someone move of the special meeting held on the 15th of June this year. Confirmation of the minutes. Councillors Routry and Taylor. No discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously as well. Thank you. Just before I go on, at 4:30 we had the opportunity for Craig Rowe, our consultant on the elected member review, to join us on the phone, Ashley, or on Skype or Zoom or...
We think it's a phone. Mate.
We think it's the phone. We think it'll be something from Millicent anyway. And at 5 o'clock we have a deputation from the Tailem Bend Sporting Hub people. At 5:30 the CEO must leave us. So we'll keep ploughing through the agenda best we can. Number 331, agenda item, the rating policy review. It's in front of you, councillors. It's an agenda item. Did we pick it up from where we left it off, don't we? Who was the mover and seconder then? Did we remove?
Councillor Bland and Councillor Ling with the...
So since they're not here now,
we asked for...
They moved it be adjourned.
oh, they moved to be adjourned. Right, okay. So it was never moved, the recommendation was never moved initially. Right, so it's up to you, councillors. The recommendation is the council adopt the rating policy as amended. Councillor Rountree.
I'm happy to move that way. I just have one comment.
Yes, certainly.
When the policies in future are given to us, can we have just the formatting changes already accepted so we can just see what the wording changes are, because I think that becomes really hard to read with the formatting ones. So if you just accept the formatting and just leave it out there, the bigger ones, because I find it really hard to read it. It's all together at the end.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Arthur? Councillor, you want to speak? Anyone else wish to speak for or against that rating policy review? Councillor Yench, sorry.
That's right.
Did you know that councillor there, is that light through the door that gets me?
It's the shine off the top of my head, Mr Mayor.
Well, that may be the case, but
I would like to indicate that I will be voting against this. There are some issues in it that I disagree with, but I'm not prepared to debate it.
okay. Anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion? You will close, councillor.
Closed.
Okay, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? So all councillors except councillor Yench voted for the motion. So I declare it carried. Second adjourned item is council members' professional development. Item 2 on my agenda. Where has it gone?
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
A comment on this one?
Certainly.
Okay, so I'm going to be voting against this motion. I just think that training needs to be targeted, meaningful, affordable and useful. And the 2 sessions, strategic thinking is strategic singing and leadership lessons for the future. I think what we need to do for councillors is to set out the sorts of things we need to know at each of the stages of our development through being a councillor. For instance, you know, the bullying one should possibly happen at the beginning of our 4-year period, not 3 years into it. And I know we do those courses, but I don't think there's any point in spending money on things just ad hoc. I would like to see a proper plan of what councillors ought to know, when they ought to be taught it, and a cost. So if we had a 4-year plan of what was going to happen, I think some of this is just ad hoc, and it comes up sporadically and we just say we're going to do it. And I just don't see value in doing training like that. I think a clearer process through that would be better. So I won't be supporting this based on that.
Okay, I'll continue to search for a mover. It's a recommendation. Council endorse the delivery of the Local Government Association's elected members' forums 2, being strategic thinking and strategic seeing, 3, leadership lessons for the future at this civic centre here. To depth of report, councillor Yench.
Sir, I am not intending to move the motion.
All right.
I am also against the motion. I believe we missed an opportunity to do this far more economically previously. It is obvious that everybody does not feel that they need to attain further training, and I accept and I respect that. But those who wished to do it, it would have been far more economical to send a few down to Adelaide than to spend a significant amount of money that is proposed for this. So I am opposed to this.
So just these two processes, are they still open for people to go if they wish to?
Yep.
So councillors, if you still wish to go, to these 2, they're still open for registrations at the price of $385 per participant. So they're still open, councillor. Councillor Taylor.
Point of clarification, did this originally come to the council to vote on attendance?
Yes, it did, I believe.
So question is, would it need to come to the council for agreement on attendance before people register, given it is a considerable amount of money?
So the view up here is it wouldn't necessarily, because there is a budget there of within budget allocation of 6,600, which is unspent at this stage, and that would be the budget going forward proposed in the budget, councillor.
So through you, Mayor, I intend to vote against it as well, because we've got 18 months left, and just because someone thinks that they need training in these areas. I think it needs to be more of a case put as to why people need training in these areas, not just there's a budget left, therefore we shall spend it. We should, although we did have training right at the start of the term, which was very welcome, especially for some of us. We need a more stringent training schedule, if you like, for members coming in, or indeed for those members who have been here for some time, for updating purposes. But at the same time, I just don't think it's not appropriate to just pick something because it arrives in the inbox.
So, two parts. So, councillors, within our policy at the moment, we understand that if you want to go to something like this within this state, you would be able to. The second thing is the new Local Government Act, which has now been, I understand, gazetted, will mandate even stronger training for new councils, regardless of whether you're a new councillor or existing or experienced councillor. So that's what we understand in the new Act.
You may. The other thing is, I understand the intent of deciding who should and shouldn't, but we have no instrument to decide whether, Councillor Taylor, you need training in this. It has to be almost like self-disclosure, because we don't have an instrument like a performance assessment that would determine, or how do we all know if somebody says, I want to go to that, we have no instrument to gauge that. In a sense, it's almost like self-disclosure that I want to do this because I feel there's a gap in my training. That's just a comment.
So through you, Mayor.
You still got the floor.
In which case, then there's no separation either in that budget for a per councillor attendance, if you like, either. So one councillor could in effect say half a dozen things and decide they'd all be good for me, so I want to attend. So without that kind of, where is the oversight on the spending of the budget?
That's through the policy, councillor. I'm going to just stop for a second. Is anyone prepared to move the recommendations where my question sits? So if there isn't anyone prepared to move, we'll simply lapse. Give one last chance. Anyone prepared to move or move anything around this, actually, since we're on the subject? Councillor Jensch.
Mr Mayor, I would like to flag that I am interested in attending these educational programs, as I know several other councillors are. It is a valuable resource. It is not squandered.
So what would be your motion, councillor?
My motion is that the councillors who wish to attend these forums in Adelaide for training purposes be encouraged to do so.
So that's the two forums that are in the recommendation originally?
Yes. And therefore, my understanding is, Mr Mayor, that it is not necessarily a vote asking permission. I believe, from my interpretation of your comments, it is a councillor's privilege, and it is a privilege to do these courses, to do so if they feel that they need further education.
Okay. Is there a seconder? I'll call again for a seconder. Councillor, your motion lapses for want of a seconder. I'll give the opportunity for anyone else to move anything around this. Are you going to move? I'll start with Councillor Arthur, but you need to move something now.
I'd like to move that all members who wish to go to courses get the approval from the council. Now, with all due respect to the CEO, previously in council, everybody was put up where you're going to, like you went to the Local Government Association meeting in Canberra, the one in Adelaide, you go to training courses, and that was always put through as a minute for elected members. Now, where that's disappeared from, I don't know, but it should be brought in so that, otherwise I could be a professional going to these courses. As it says, it's $1,300 to run in here, but it's $225 plus the travelling expenses to go down there. So if you took the whole 9 down, there's over $2,000 plus travelling.
Yeah, so councillor,
Deb could probably word that.
Deb, the Director of Corporate Communities, said to me that perhaps it's best that she brings back the policy, perhaps a revised policy, or
Yep, I'm
what she thinks is revised for the next meeting, if that would help councillors. Would that suit? Would you be prepared to sit on or withdraw your motion on that
I am,
basis?
but it always has been in the past.
That's where, do you want a motion around that, Deb? Or you fine? Don't need one, thank you. Councillor Roundtree,
I think I was just going to move a motion exactly that we get the policy reviewed, because I think there's some
Policy
gaping
review.
holes in this
Policy
policy.
appears to, still for some of us, be a little wide. Okay, I then move on, if there's no further thing, to item number 3. Adjourned item, this is the cemeteries and burial policy review. There is a recommendation, councillors. It'd be useful to start with the recommendation. Councillor,
I would
Round-
like to change some of that recommendation.
okay, you've got the floor.
Thank you. Council has a delegation to approve or not approve burials on private land, as was in the comments, within a prescribed area. The policy should be amended to reflect that a person can make an application to council for this to occur, and wording similar to that used in 3.7, community memorial seats or sites, could be the similar language used. So I know you could amend this section to say, council does not encourage any burial of human remains on private land. A person may only inter bodily remains in a prescribed area on land outside a cemetery or natural burial ground with the written permission of the landowner and council. So I just think we need to amend that, because the policy as it sits now says that it's definitely no, but the comments are, and the legislation says there is a process, there is a form you can fill in, and it should just be stated that if someone really wanted to go down that track, they at least have the opportunity to apply to council with their reasons why they want to do it, rather than just say, we're not considering it.
You're suggesting the policy go back to further
Well,
work?
I think it's just that one, for me, it's just that one area. Other than that, I think the policy is fine. It just needs that one section amended to be more reflective of what the opportunities are for people, if that's the way they want to go. It might be that it never gets up, and certainly I doubt that if it hasn't happened in a long time, it's very unlikely to happen in the future, but a blanket no is not the right answer.
So councillor, would you be happy to move that way with the policy reworded to adopt that change, or you want to see it again?
No, I would be happy for it to adopt it if that could be amended to include your comments back to me in that policy, yeah.
So you are moving that way with that amendment?
Yes.
Councillor Quammen, you're seconding that?
Yes.
With that slight change around,
Yes, Mr Mayor, I like what councillor Roundtree says. It makes sense. So.
okay? Anyone else?
Mr Mayor, could I just ask one question? A few locals have asked me this. The memorials at Tiddy Cemetery, a lawned area of the Tiddy Cemetery only is dedicated to marble memorials. Utilisation of this area requires the interment right holder to submit engravement details to the operations manager. Once approved, engravements must be made on the marble memorial provided by council. Access to this dedicated area is on payment of a fee in accordance with the council fees and charges. Can someone enlighten the residents of Tindanara what that means?
Deb, you
Through you,
are-
Mr Mayor. And I apologise if I'm a bit vague on this, because this is the other area, but my understanding is there's a standard marble plaque that is used in that area, and council supplies that. And so it gets engraved specifically, so it can then go back to the cemetery.
So none of the locals seem to know about this.
Oh, really? It's been like that forever and a
councillor,
day.
they
They
is my
supply their own
understanding.
headstones and all
No,
that
but
sort of
councillor, I
stuff.
think we're mixing up headstones
Yeah,
and
it's not the
interment
headstones.
with the memorials. I think that's what we're doing.
That's right, it's not the headstones.
It's not the headstone.
No.
Not a headstone per se,
No,
as in per a leasehold site.
I've been asked by residents what it actually refers to, because they've got no idea. These are people who lived there for 70 years. I've got no idea.
There's a specific area dedicated to these marble plaques, and it's that specific area only for these marble plaques.
So we could take the question on notice and respond to you later, councillor. Would that inhibit you voting on this policy?
just tell them we don't know either.
No, we do know.
They are asking.
We just don't know at the front table today, because I think I know what you're saying, but I just want to get that confirmed out of session, if that was all right with you.
They thought it might have been the mausoleum wall, but most of them.
That's a columbarium.
And thinks of that too.
It's a columbarium, that one. That's a bit different again. Will it inhibit you voting, or yes or no? Because at this stage, I have Evelyn as a seconder, so if you're happy for us to get back to you around that process, that'll be fine.
Or get them to go hunting.
Maybe. Councillors, anyone else for or against? Vote, Deb, what are we doing?
Through you, Mayor, we're just going to change it a tiny bit.
We're just doing a little bit of a check, just hold your horses.
Is that,
We don't need that motion, just adopt the policy.
okay? Take all that.
But how do we then, through you, Mayor, know that the amendments will be picked up?
We'll circulate the,
We'll circulate.
Okay.
like the previous.
Any further debate? I reckon pretty clear in front of me, as amended. We'll close, councillor.
Closed.
Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Got the minute action list, please, councillors. Anything out of the minute action list, councillor Roundtree?
Just a question, with the comments that the completed items are removed and completed items and removal will occur at the following month's agenda. With all the completed items, where are they being stored? So are you keeping a record of, on a spreadsheet of all the completeds? Reference? Because we used to have them that you could go back and have a look at things that happened. Now I kind of have to cut and paste from PDFs and stick them into Word documents to try and keep track of things that we've done just out of interest. So how are we managing that?
so through you, Mayor, Ash is saying that we've always removed the completed items, and we do,
Sorry. Councillor Aintree, we always remove the completed items from the minute action list, but we do save old copies of the minute action list. So if there's something that you want to look at, we could find it for you.
Through you, Chair, I thought in the beginning, when I first started, obviously our minute action list was really long and unwieldy. But I thought we had that long list of things and you could go right back and keep checking. So things that, no, that only the current stuff. Okay,
it was long, but it's now not long, but the completed items weren't there.
all
councillor.
right. But so someone is, I suppose my question, someone is keeping that list of all of the things that have been done.
So these documents, as part of just this minute meeting, would be trimmed and kept.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the minute action list? Councillor Arthur?
Yes, Mr Mayor, regarding the council upgrade members training register, so it includes all professional development conferences attended by the council members, does that require information for previous ones? Because I was actually just cleaning my office up the other day and I found 3 or 4 certificates of local government courses, which I'd done so many times ago. So,
Which century, councillor?
sorry,
Which century?
which century? Just in
I know
this
you
one.
served some time in the last century,
Just
you
the
see,
last one,
councillor.
yeah.
Just the last.
But
the
I
last
just
one.
wondered if you require that information.
Only if you wanted to keep it, but otherwise, probably not, councillor.
I don't even know why I kept them. They're very nice looking certificates.
The fact they're very nice means they're probably from many years ago. Okay, anything else? I move on to item 5.1, which is questions with notice. Councillor Arthur's the first one.
I've got to get back now.
There is a response there. I have had this discussion with the CEO around the mechanics and the reporting between reports at committee meetings and sometimes discussions in the last couple of years, Zooms, ins, and how we better communicate what is said in meetings back to councillors. I think we're going to have to work on a process there because unless you go back to the tape, and I'm well aware that the Roads and Infrastructure Committee will now probably not be doing that when it goes out into the community more. And I know Councillor Roundtree's raised this in the last meeting about how we better report back to all of council and the public around information we receive. I don't know if that answers your question though, Councillor, but.
Can I just make this comment?
Yep.
If I was a councillor and I'd forgotten what went on, I went back to the agenda to have a look at that, and then I went to the minutes, just wasted my time because it doesn't tell you one thing about what was in there. There's no, the presentation by Rex was all verbal. It's nothing been recorded. So, and what we've got there that I've shown you is the agenda and the minutes, and that is the total information that a ratepayer or an elected member gets at this stage. And it's, in my opinion, the ratepayers are entitled to know.
So the
thing.
challenge, councillor, is do you want every word we said reported every time?
Well,
No.
no, I'm not saying that, but if Rex has reported, with the budget review, for example, he's given us a budget review. Why hasn't that been available to the public?
No,
Printed document, it's a budget review. All the expertise and explanations on what's happened to do that, that's fine. But they should be able at least to see.
so you're not better find that in the agenda online.
You cannot find one thing online. What you've got there is the total what's online.
Councillor, you know I'm not in love with online. But we're just doing a little tester here because I've had this discussion with the CEO around this because it's been concerning some councils for some time with disjointed information. And I'd always say to everyone, you really need to read the agenda to understand the minute. That's the first point I'd make to everyone. Otherwise, the minute doesn't mean much at all to some people. But we're just checking out, just for example,
On the website, Mr. Mayor, I think what's difficult about the website is you now have to click on 3 little lines in the top right-hand corner to get into the bowels of the council stuff. So you've got your draft 21-22 banner, business plan, then you've got payments, maintenance requests, water, feedback, building development, works, projects. But for the sort of stuff that Councillor Arthur's talking to, you have to click up the top right on 3 little lines, which then brings down a scrolling thing. We can go home, your council services, community, stay informed. So you've got to go to your council, then you've got to go to agendas and minutes, then you've got to go down to council. And it doesn't just say you've got Coorong infrastructure and assets, council assessment panel, then the word council. So you've got to know to go click on council. So about 4 clicks in. And from there, you scroll down further and it gives you the minutes. So I think what Councillor Arthur's saying, for people who aren't familiar with how detailed this is or how nothing's really like the way it was before, that information was more on 1 click in or on the home screen or at least 1 click.
Go and sort of ask why this appears to be.
It's more hidden and it's harder to get to. I even struggle to find stuff, and I'm quite savvy with computers, but I struggle to find stuff.
You want to go, Deb, with this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure what happened historically, sorry, because we basically moved to Squiz when I started, so I'm not that familiar with how it was before. Sorry, Siri thinks I'm talking to Siri. We can have a look at a redesign of the website, but that in itself is a project, I would suggest.
And a budget consideration.
Yeah, potentially a budget consideration, but we can certainly try and improve that, see what we can do in the first instance. That's.
Through you, Mayor, we could just expand on the word council to have council minutes and agendas, if that would make it easier for me.
I'm just not entirely sure, like, if you have a look at this, why these have to be so big, like why these boxes here have to be so big. Like they could just be single lines and you could then, like they're huge, you've got to scroll a long way, but to actually find what you're needing, what he wants to look at, you've got to go up here to those 3 little squiggles.
So
And
I
then
have a
you've got to
different
go
view
from
to you,
there.
councillor.
Yeah, sort of.
I have a different
I
view
have
to
a
you.
I don't intend to, even though I might need it to run a computer
Oh my
familiarisation course in the council today.
How can you have a different view to me?
I have a different page.
So this sometimes happens and in relation to Mr. Squiz.
Interesting.
I'm going to go to
that could be
Councillor
part of the
Cormann.
problem.
Councillor.
So what have you got?
Councillors, we're over here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to do my best with this. Thank you, Councillor Arthur. I have concerns too, and this is a financial consultant, or you want to say, who's doing a very important job for us. And I would have thought giving a verbal report should be backed up by something in writing, and because I'm not good at computers, and a lot of people are not good at computers, and I know sometimes they could be on the spot and asked a question and they got to give a reply, but I can't see why sometimes us in the chamber could ask, could we have that in writing?
So the reports are in the agenda, I'm informed. Now, I take on board what you're saying, and sometimes there's some leakage between a Zoom in and that report being on the agenda. That would be, I think, Councillor Arthur, you've raised the question. I think we're aware up here that further work needs to be done there to make sure that the agenda matches or is available alongside the minutes. I think that's your principal concern. And the reports that should be in the agenda. Sometimes reports, and it would be for the presiding member to decide sometimes about a late agenda item, because that sometimes slips through the system too, although Ashley informed me that she does. It doesn't normally, it is put up afterwards. So that's why I'd much rather we have questions on notice or motions with notice than motions without notice. It gives more time for consideration in terms of the principles we need to adopt. Councillor Arthur, have we finished answering your first question? I think we've got two.
Yes.
Moving to your second question.
Yeah, the reason I ask that is if you look at the agenda item, it says finance report will be given by Rex Mooney, full stop. The minutes, as per what I've just put there. So, you know, like it doesn't tell anything to anybody really.
So you needed his report to make that sense of that.
Well, if you, as an elected member, wanted to check on something that happened, you go back to your agenda and your minutes, you can't find anything.
Right, we'll try. Sorry? We're going to be Zooming finance meetings, I'm just told. All of them, some of them?
All of them.
Right, that'll be no good for me, will it? Councillor, can I move you on to your second question, please? Yep. So that's around the use of cost of consultants for the past 3 years. That is indicated will be available in September, that report. That fine, given the time constraints this time of year?
Well, to me, it's not really a good answer to the question because part of the thing was which departments are using and why are they using them and how much are they using them. We know, for example, the finance department has virtually been run with consultants for the last 3 years, even though we've got a considerable amount of staff there. Now, these consultants don't come cheap. And my question is, you know, why do we need these consultants in the first place? How much are they costing us? And I will leave this as is at this stage, but put it back in after the budget's all been finalised and everybody's settled down, and then we'll have time with this magnificent new computer system to be able to do this. And to be quite honest with you, I didn't think it would be very, very hard to get, because you know who the consultants are you've employed. There's probably about 6 or 8 of them. I wouldn't have thought it had been that hard to get that information.
So you want to go?
So through you, Mayor, it's not hard to get, councillor, but there are other priorities at this point in time. And at this point in time also with the budgets, we're finishing off and closing accounts. So that goes on for another couple of weeks. So I couldn't even give you 2021 yet because it hasn't been reconciled. So there is a process around reconciliation at the end of each budget period. That hasn't finished, and it won't finish really until after our cut-off, which is the 15th of July. So 2021, I couldn't give you anyway. And if you want the 3 of them, if you want it for a specific purpose, we can reallocate staff's time to that. But I just wanted to let you know that it's a process, and the 2021 information wouldn't be available until the end of July anyway.
Well, if you looked at I said 2021 to date. I didn't ask for the end of the year. So.
Councillor, in the broader sense, it would be no particular secret that our financial systems have needed renewal. And so we would hope that probably by the end of this year, early next year, the new system will be fully embedded and be able to provide this sort of report far more promptly than it has to up to now. But I'll take that in September we might have a report around this.
Absolutely.
That's your second question. Are you happy?
Yeah, it seems a lot of money for 3 to 4 jobs.
Which one?
What?
The LGA procurement. You've moved to your third question.
I
sorry.
thought you was moving on the next
No,
one.
I have, yeah.
You know, two of the projects weren't very good. Every farmer could do that. So I'm just wondering, and what these costs, are they allocated against the actual, you know, the cars, the fuel, that sort of stuff?
That's what you mean.
Including your computer system.
The use of LGA procurement means that we adhere to probity and to independence. And I don't think any council would be moving away from that at this point in time. So whether you consider it a lot or not, it is one of those things where there is a process around procurement, and some of our procurement is quite large. So for the grader, for instance, which is $300,000, you would expect to pay somewhere between, I don't know, to you, Matt, 10 to 15,000 for that particular service.
Councillor, we believe that figure probably includes the procurement of the new financial system.
And the background, the courier and.
Yeah.
FinTech.
BinTech, and so that it's probably a bit high. So you'd always need to judge that against council having its own procurement officer
Yeah, that's fine.
and the probity issues that arise at that point.
People want to know, I want to know.
Yeah.
And the
No.
thing is, we've gone from being anti-LGA procurement to 100% LGA procurement in probably 2 years. We never used to want to use them, and now we use them all the time.
It probably was reflecting the ability of LGA procurement 2 years ago. It seems to have improved.
Thank you.
Councillor Roundtree, you have a question there. I'm very pleased to have signed a letter to Paddy Jacobs
Yeah, no, that's.
4 weeks ago.
Thank you for that.
Your question answered.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor, there's a response. Around footpaths and a proposed renewal budget. The renewal is for existing footpaths.
Yep, thank you.
Happy?
Good.
Your second question around the Taylor Bend Tennis Courts, Councillor Qualman.
Sorry, on the first.
Footpaths, right?
Yes, footpath. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Great question, Councillor Taylor. Yes, council needs a footpath expansion strategy. This issue has been raised regularly by the community, and also footpaths were a popular issue at our community vision workshops. So it's a good idea that it be included in an upcoming long-term financial plan, annual business plan and budgets. I totally support it. Well done, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, Councillor, in my time, I've seen some footpath plans. I hope they're all in the file somewhere. But it will need council to decide to spend extra money over and above that amount there to actually bring in place new footpaths. Your second question, Councillor Taylor, is in relation to what was or still is the old Taylor Bend Tennis Court site.
Thank you, Matt. This clears up, I think, in the community, misinformation and perhaps some inaccurate information, which is still floating around. And it's quite clear to anyone who reads this, certainly, what the land's history is. So thank you to the staff for pulling together what is a considerable amount of information here.
Thank you. So for the public, Councillor Jensch in the second, yeah, that is quite clear now. It is zoned neighbourhood, and as council's in freehold title, and we note the Clapp family's interest in the site, Councillor, and you note as soon as possible now we'll be going ahead with the growth strategy, which will probably include that piece of land as an option. Councillor Jensch.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to flag I have a motion in regards to this item in motions without notice, please.
Certainly. Okay. Councillor Qualman, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. This is in relation to the Taylor Bend Tennis Courts and also, more importantly, to the memorial plot for Frank Clapp. I'm glad that there is a report in now for some clarification. Now, what it is actually zoned for, was now residential or actually neighbourhood zone, the latest terminology. And I'm glad you mentioned, Mr Mayor, about Frank Clapp, and I hope that council was mindful of this existing memorial and that we take appropriate consultation with the Clapp family and the community of any change or rearrangement to that memorial plot. Thank you.
No worries, thanks. Anyone else on that subject? We're done. 5.2, questions without notice, councillors. Councillor Hill, thank you.
This didn't really need any backgrounding. It was a request from a couple of community members about the recording of the meetings. They are still finding it difficult to hear people clearly. Is it possible when staff do have some time, and obviously not coming up to the in a financial year, that perhaps we can review the footage of a couple of meetings and see where the difficulties do lie with the recording and who perhaps needs some education in how to speak to the microphone and in a clear and a clear manner. So that could be something we put on the back burner.
We do have a look at them generally, and most time, as you're suggesting, it is user error rather than the equipment at this point in time. But and getting used to it is something that is new to us in a sense.
Yeah, so just obviously we haven't got all the councillors here today, but yeah, just to keep in mind that we do have people watching these recordings, and to be as clear and concise as possible, perhaps, rather than waffling on and making it more of a mumble type situation.
Certainly, yeah. Councillor Bowman on this subject, I presume?
No, just
All
when
right.
you're ready for the questions.
No, next one. I'm on questions without notice. It's you.
Thank you. To Mr Mayor, through the chair, to the new director, Matt James. First of all, Tailem Bend toilets we were anticipating up and running by yesterday. How are we going with that? Thank you, Matt.
Through the Mayor, thank you for your question, Councillor. Tailem Bend toilets are planned to be opened this end of this week. If they aren't, we'll make sure there's communication provided so that everyone is aware of when the intended date is, but it is to be opened this Friday. Thank you.
Thank you for that first question, because everybody's busting. Next one. Through the chair to Matt again. Ceiling and curbing works on Hill Street, Tailem Bend, please.
Thank you, Councillor, and through the Mayor. The Hill Street project is currently out for tender. That's for the ceiling and curbing of Hill Street in Tailem Bend. Once the tender has been received, council staff will do an assessment of that tender and let a contract, more than likely in the late July or early August for completion later on this calendar year. And hopefully the project will be successful. It's funded through the local government, the local roads and community infrastructure program.
Councillor Yench.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a couple. To the chair, the unmade roads at Wellington East that council converted to housing blocks, started in the previous council. I'd like to know how many of those blocks or those roads ends have been sold, and if so, how much council obtained? Because I believe there is a motion that exists on the books that clearly states that any funds from the sale of these properties were to be used at Wellington East for the Wellington East community, particularly the open space areas. So take that one needs to be taken on notice.
Do you have any idea, councillor, how many blocks have been sold?
I don't, but I think there was upwards of 4 that were there. They were the closed roads.
Originally part of the closed roads.
Yes, they were.
We're going to have to take that on notice, councillor.
Thank you. And through you, Mr Mayor, please, to Matt. I've had a number of people indicate to me they are concerned about Station Drive, Coldie Road T-section, and that they have seen a number of near misses with traffic coming from the bottom end of Station Drive towards Coldie Road. I know there's no give way sign or stop sign, but the question has been asked of me, is council able to do something about that?
So Matt, do you want to answer that or take it on notice?
So we'll have to take that on notice. So that's where
You.
Coldie Road meets Station Drive, opposite the railway station, councillor.
It's where traffic is coming along from behind St Vincent de Paul's. Because
Down
it's,
by the old fuel depots.
yeah, it's not being seen very easily if it's at speed.
It's technically a T-junction, isn't it?
Yes.
That's something, yeah, we could look at, because whether it needs to be a T-junction is a bit of a different question in that scenario, actually. Okay. Any other questions without notice? Councillor Arthur.
Mr Mayor, first to Matt, question that's being asked down our way all the time is, when will we have rollers behind the graders again instead of just playing puddly, pushing dirt around and getting it pushed 2 weeks time? It's just not, it is not viable the way that we are just grading roads without rollers. It's just wasting money.
So, Councillor, you're well aware there's been a report to Council, and Matt, I think, was very, very, very close, if not today, with one of them.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, Councillor Arthur, as you're aware, there was a compliance issue, which was a legal matter regarding the use of the rollers, which has now been resolved. The compliance of those rollers has now been confirmed. I've got an email this afternoon from an engineering company that has provided a compliance certificate, and we'll be putting compliance plates on those rollers. The roller at Tintinara will commence tomorrow. All of the operators have been re-inducted into the use of the rollers in a safe manner. The roller at Meningie will also be in use later on this week. The roller from Tailem Bend is still having some modifications done due to a bent axle, and that will be hopefully in play later, early in July. So we will be recommencing the use of rollers behind graders in the near future.
Thank you. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people happy about that, because I didn't realise it's been nearly 6 months that we've been doing this. And I suppose elected members don't know unless they go along the roads or get told.
So, Councillor, perhaps our procurement processes, one of your earlier questions, needs to be more thorough around the design and that around machinery. I think would be the lesson I'd take out of it.
My next question.
Oh, you got another one. Good.
Yeah, my next question is to the CEO. With 40 years experience gone on Monday, has council advertised for a new grader operator, maintenance grader operator?
We have, Mr. Ewing?
Yep, through the Mayor, we have run a procurement process for a new grader operator. Happy to say we've had quite a number of applicants. And in the next week or two, we will be going through those and looking to employ a new grader operator. One of our staff members who is in the construction crew is going to be filling in as a temporary grader operator in the patrol grading area for the time being, which is great to give someone internally an opportunity to learn a new skill.
Just a supplementary question of that. With your panel for looking at that, do the council have an operator, existing operator sitting on the panel? Because the last position we filled as a grader operator was an absolute disaster for the council because it wasn't a grader operator. So I'm just wondering, do your procurement committee or whatever you have an actual operator on there to talk? And do we send these guys out that are, if you get down to a short list of one or two, you actually put them out on a grader and see if they can grade? Because we don't want to get what we had the last time.
Through the Mayor, the employment process does include a probation period. All employees of council go through a probation period. Reference checks are undertaken. It's very important, like in procurement, that probity is and I guess there's no conflicts of interest with regards to the employment of someone. Operators will be consulted with regards to the employment of a new operator, but are unlikely to be on an interview panel.
Anything else, Councillor? You happy?
Yep. Oh, I'm not happy, but
I look forward to that day.
Fingers crossed.
Any further questions without notice? There being none, I'll move on to item 6.1, the Mayor's report. It's been actually a very good month for opening. So we had a good opening of Mr. Haddam's book in this chamber and of the history room over at the railway station at Tailem Bend, and it was the same time as the rock feature in front of this building was completed, and so we had some interesting comments around that. The opening of the Tintinara Football and Netball Club facilities was fantastic. At Tintinara is a fantastic facility. It really is. It's a credit to all involved with our allocation of some federal money of 250,000 and the state money, but really the community putting in the equivalent of $500,000 to have that facility. Also, I found this quite fascinating, the commissioning of the new SES rescue vessel at Menengi. Councillor Hill, will it save us, or is it the side door not going to work? I don't know.
It depends who actually operates the.
Yeah, we need that wild man of the Coorong on it, perhaps. I was not confronted by one of the Southeast mayors saying, why can't we have an SES boat? But it worked out he had no coastline, so I'm not quite sure how he wants one. Or an SES. But be that as it may, that was quite fascinating. It's a beautiful boat, and I understand that the SES shed at Menengi will have to be enlarged to fit it in. It's a great pleasure today to farewell one of our various long-time employees, Ian Appleton. It's a credit. I might just briefly reflect on last week in the National General Assembly of Local Government, and we will present a report. Bridget will present the report, which she's wrote the notes up on who we met and what we did on last Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday morning. It was somewhat unusual meeting due to COVID in terms of the 102 motions, was there? Yeah. Which most, I think, attendees thought was a bit autocratic, but nonetheless, I suppose I could have went down the front and spoke if I wanted to, but nonetheless, it was a bit of an awkward week in this, and that the then Deputy Prime Minister spoke and probably finished within 2 hours, and then the then Local Government Minister spoke on Wednesday, and I think by Thursday he was finished. So it's probably not good to come to a local government conference and address. I would say, and I thank our federal member, Tony Passon, for getting us in the door with the Minister for Housing, Michael Sukkar, that Bridget went to that meeting. Assistant Minister of Transport, Scott Uxholz, which we led that delegation, and the next morning we had a bit of a brief discussion and breakfast with Tony Passon, with Nola Marino and Keith Pitt. And I think Keith is still the Minister for Water he's out of Cabinet, but he's still the Minister for Water. Last I heard, that's what you've heard. So in terms of some time in Parliament House and that, I think we had a reasonable run. But we'll fully report on that and the costs at the next meeting, I believe, is best. Any questions? Councillor Qualman first.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. How'd you go with the State Leader of the Opposition, that little meeting?
Lovely gentleman.
I think he sounds all right on the radio.
Well, he is in person too, Councillor. No, it was just us and him and one of his officers, and no, fine.
Did they...
Didn't promise anything, no.
Oh, nice.
But I think, we need to be known to the opposition in this state.
And with elections coming up.
Well,
yes.
That's right. So I think that was, he invited us, we went.
Oh, that's good.
Councillor Rountree.
Did you get a chance whilst you're at the meeting to talk to about the duplication of the Swamport Bridge?
So, Councillor,
Did that come
on
up?
that, yes, we did. So between a federal announcement around funding for a corridor study and the state have matched that or endorsed that, I'm not sure.
State government budget.
State government have budgeted for it. There will be, we understand, a transport study or a corridor study done to effectively start the other side of the Swamport Bridge and technically finish at the end of the Mallee Highway junction with the Dukes Highway, which will take to be at the entrance to the Motorsport Park. So this will be a planning and I suppose a rough costing study.
So, yeah.
And we've invited the Director of Infrastructure in South Australia, Mr. Braxton Smith. CEO, sorry, there you go. To come out and address us as councillors. On this stage, he's indicated he'll try, so that we can make sure we have as much input into that study as is possible. So this is a 1 in probably 40-year chance to have an influence on the streetscape and the functionality and what other future requirements we have for what is the Princes and Dukes Highway, this scenario.
So you anticipate council having good involvement in that process?
That's where you met. So I spoke to the CEO at DIT and invited him to come and provide an overview of what the scoping study will entail.
Yep.
I think then the next step for us after that, when we understand what they think they're doing, I think then we come back together and we will run through a workshop with you about what you want from that study as well. And we'll present that back to them to say, if you haven't included this, can you please think about A, B, C and D? So I think it's probably a two-step process. We need to understand what they have in their scoping study, and then is it what we think's in there, or does it suit what we want? And then we can go back and say, we would like you to include these. Now, they may say no to that, but I think we've got an opportunity, as the Mayor said, to actually impress on them what we think, and it's probably a once in a lifetime chance.
Does that, through you, Mayor, include the duplication of the Dukes over the railway line? So,
That
So
would,
the
that
whole
would be
thing.
my understanding of what's being offered.
okay,
I think when and if he comes,
Oh, no, he'll come.
he'll come, we'll impress on him that, shall we say.
Yes.
Our previous meeting sort of impressed this part of, that it was not just about the Swamport Bridge, although I'm sure that'll gain.
because it would be
the
awful to have
headlines.
all of that dual carriageway, then to bottleneck at one point, then to expand again, like the whole thing has to be.
So it'd be
looked at.
fair to say that our state and federal members need the work done so they can then pressure the
Pressure,
system
yeah.
to fund it.
Okay.
And that's been the issue for our federal member in particular.
Yep.
Is what do we promise
we
to
want?
fund if we've got no plans?
Mm.
I might just add, just in Canberra, Nola Moreno made this very clear that the federal, she was in charge of building better regions, I think, from memory,
Yeah, yeah.
and RDAs. She made it very clear that the projects that are likely to be funded have this full support of the region.
Mhm.
Very clear on that. She was quite more than happy with the South Australian RDAs. In fact, Neil Martinson, the previous RDA chair, was in the room, probably helped a bit, but that would be the format to get a better chance of funding under BRRF and a couple other funding streams. And so in relation to this corridor study for the Princes Dukes Highway, I'd hope that we'd be able to place that in that stream partially around perhaps the enhancements to the road, not necessarily the physical road itself, the pieces around it.
Thank you.
Anything else, councillors? I'll move on. Councillor Jentsch, you got a report, anything you want to add?
No, nothing, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Rountree, you got anything to yours?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you, councillors there. We move on to.
Mr Mayor, please.
Yes. You want to,
In regards, councillor Rowntree's council operations, I have grave concerns because in essence, councillors are making decisions and we have to accept the responsibilities for them.
Point of order, please,
with
Mayor. We
relation to
haven't.
what, councillor? I'm just trying to
In
follow.
relation to, we're looking at councillor Rowntree's council
I would like the
operations.
opportunity to speak to my motion first before we
Sorry,
put in
I
another
thought-
motion.
Well, I haven't got to any motion yet. so
I know.
I
I just
apologise, Mr
jumping
Mayor, I
the
thought
gun.
we were on that.
No, I'm just trying to work out where you're up to. I thought it was in relation
Number
to her.
seven.
report.
711.
So
I would like
I'm
an
going to give the
opportunity.
councillor the opportunity to address
Oh,
her
absolutely.
motion first.
Thank you.
So I will move for 7.1, sorry.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate the work that staff did in providing that information. I think the chronology of events was useful to people who have had an issue with the rockery to see everything that's happened. So if my motion has brought that information all into one spot, I think that's a very useful thing. I am prepared to amend that motion. I've had a look at it now and I don't want to cause any more work for staff, and I would like to amend it just to have some wording around that we be briefed, and I know you do a good job, so we be briefed on any future issues that are likely to have a real or perceived impact on councillors. And it's not a must, and it's not any of those stronger words. I'd just like it to be that if you think this is something that people might have an issue with in the future, that we have a session where councillors are fully briefed on that issue. So I would like to amend my motion to reflect that change.
You need to give us the words.
Okay, that council members be fully briefed or briefed. So council members be briefed,
I hope that any brief is a full brief.
full briefs, on any future operational decisions that are likely to have a real or perceived impact on councillors.
So councillors, the first point I'm going to raise with you is it's not our business as councillors around operational decisions. I need you
Maybe
to-
just
I need you to
matters
tighten
then.
Tighten that right out.
Yeah,
So,
okay,
because operational issues are not our issues.
Sure.
The first part of this.
or maybe just future decisions then, just take out the word operational.
Or any future matters?
Any future matters is fine with me too. I think you know what I'm trying to get at, is just so that I feel like it'd be good if we had all the information ahead of time to sort of push back on some of the negativity that was coming around.
So before I wait for that to be tidied up, I come back to the point earlier today about our budget process and us understanding our budget process and what's in it. And I had this discussion in a broad sense last week with Bridget around how we report better to you as councillors about a variety of things. And one of them is, it is in the information document sometimes, but it is in reports to the Roads and Infrastructure Committee meetings. So it should be an agenda item for anyone, any councillor, of where we're up to with various projects. Now, I appreciate that the in front of the building here, the rockery, for want of a better word, come up as some surprise for some people. But it shouldn't have, because it's been on the agenda as outlined in this report for over 2 years.
Yes.
But as long as I've been in local government, it's only when things happen that people take notice. And for some of us who've been around a long time, I'm looking at Councillor Yentz and Councillor Corman, I think only. We did this about 20 years ago, some protuberances in Taylor Bend, which lasted about 2 days. The concrete wasn't really set before it was removed. So the real question is, how do we, or how does the executive keep you informed of the likely upcoming capital works or major maintenance works that may come up all of a sudden to elected members as something we didn't know about? That's the real question we need to ask ourselves.
And I
Bridget?
think through each, that's where I'm heading, is this, I think I take your point that the information it's in different stages was in different areas, but tying it all together, that's where your report on what happened in the chronology of it was really good. It was great. Appreciate the time.
I'll be mindful of that. And with the rockery in particular, if I'd been a day earlier, you would have had an email about it. I just wasn't a day earlier. For that
Yeah,
one.
fair enough.
Councillor Quammen, are you the seconder or speaker?
Second, and if I could speak to her, please.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like you said, Mr. Mayor, I've been in 9 years in local government. It's one of the few times that I was in a hostile community around the place. I was actually worried about coming down the street because sometimes I get asked questions and sometimes I was quite physically harassed, and phone calls and meltdown on the social media. And most people were, Mr. Mayor, really peeved off about the loss of 4 car parks. Whilst we have it, the various means of communication sent out and it's on the agenda, and just as you pointed out, while everything's going right, it's fine, but as soon as something goes wrong, we don't hear the end of it. And it's mainly old people, I shouldn't say older people, but it's people that don't use Facebook, weren't communicated. So I'd just like to ask through the chair to the CEO, was any of this intent put in the Tailem topics for Tailem Bend?
Through you, Mayor, I don't think so, but we are now regularly putting in information to Tailem topics to Lake Glenda and Canalpin Hub as a matter of course after every council meeting. So sometimes the timing is not quite right because one of them is actually a monthly publication. I think 2 of them are. So that makes it a bit tricky in terms of sometimes it's historical once we get to put the article in, but we have an intention to have a update basically from the chambers each month in each of those 3 publications.
If I may continue, Mr. Mayor, because I thought that it would be, would plug the hole, so to speak. It just seemed a lot of people, I know, how did you get the word out there? But the Tailem topics is very reliable, like 1800 we're circulating now, and it has a very good communication spread. So I'd just like to finish that council maybe later on consider having a street parking review of the main street of Tailem Bend, and one of the options is probably to move the east side bus parking zone and put it in front of the railway station, and that would free up 4 car parking spots to relieve this issue. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. I agree with you that the sign's still in front saying you can park there now, where there's the rockery. So it would be timely to have a review of the parking arrangements along the street and make sure we abide by what's required as part of disabled parking. But the bus stop, I've noticed, is not used, even though it's only used for a short time in the mid-afternoon for the return of the buses. I think this will become clearer when our toilet block is replaced and the old one's no longer in that good prominent position, and it might make it clearer. My experience is that sometimes it doesn't matter what we do, the public don't take notice until we do it. I'm pleased in this report we'll be able to outline a little bit clearer the reasoning behind why we did this. Councillor Taylor.
Through you, Mayor, so I'm going to speak for this, and One of the problems, I think, is, and the CEO keeps reminding me of this one, is the time it takes from a project to get up for implementation. And therefore, people have forgotten that they were even consulted.
Including councillors sometimes.
And absolutely, and what they said as a result of the consultation. So perhaps there are some things which are obviously going to cause mayhem and disquiet amongst the community. So for something like this, we maybe just need a 6-monthly update on what's happening with it, if it is still on the books. Another one to note would be the sculpture in Meningie, where people have forgotten that there was going to be a sculpture in Meningie. So therefore, it's come as a surprise, even though they were consulted. So perhaps it's just a question of keeping that information going, so keeping the community informed as the project progresses, rather than assuming that it's dropped off completely.
I agree, and those were the 3 projects when I came into the position that were outstanding, and they're now finished. So there were no outstanding old ones, I don't think. That, fingers crossed. Having said that, I didn't know that the traffic management thing was a motion of council until last week. So there are still a few surprises, but in terms of capital build, they were the 3 outstanding ones: the toilets, the boat, and the rockery out here are now complete, and we intend to put the information in the info doc. At some point before probably next calendar year, we will rearrange the agenda so that the info doc comes into the agenda much more prominently, so that there is an update where people can read. But I also think, and I agree, we will maybe just an email or Facebook as projects start to roll out. We will regularly update them depending on what the project is. Wellington East is the next big one that's coming up in a sense.
It's like the Wellington East plans are now somewhat formulated, and I wonder how do we circulate that again to.
We may go back to community.
I think that could be wise. And if councillors, you remember at the bend near the churches there at Taylor Bend here on Granites Road, we put some signs up last year. I got no reaction from that. So sometimes and of course, council has chosen at this stage still not to fund it. So, Councillor Hill.
I agree in part with Councillor Roundtree and Councillor Taylor that some of these things do take some time, and no matter how many times you talk about it. But the thing is, one day it's there, and what was on paper is in front of you, and there will be reactions to it, regardless of how much communication you gave. And I'm using the sculpture as a example of that. Within a day or two, it was up on the park at Meningie. I don't particularly like it. And if I was a community member, I'm probably sure I would probably have something to say about it. But it didn't look like what I envisaged in my brain, no matter how many times you hear about it. So I think we're always going to get a reaction to something, especially when it's not there 1 minute and it's there the next. I mean, there was reports about the rockery even before anything, as soon as the rocks turned up, there was complaints happening on the social media before even the landscaping got finished. So I think we just got to take it on the chin sometimes that there will be public backlash to things. I felt very comfortable that there was enough information about what was happening out the front. It just took a long time to happen. And I think when it suddenly appears, there's a reaction. And so I'm mindful that people do need to perhaps get a little bit of a background story when it finally arrives.
So one of the, thank you, Councillor, is particularly with, shall I say, the more artistic of our projects, and we can go all the way back to the Coorong Murray Trail between Taylor Bend and Wellington East here, and the work we've had to do is ongoing around making that compliant. In each of these cases, often these projects have a lovely genesis, but in actual fact, to put them in place in the public costs is more difficult than people first envisaged. And so in those processes now, we've got to put a lot more steps in place behind or earlier in the process to protect us from. And some of these projects take 2, 3 and 4 years due to often being subject to a grant. You're closed, so I'm going to go to Councillor Jentsch next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But I concur with Councillors Cormann and Councillor Hill particularly. Like Councillor Cormann, I found it very difficult moving through the community when the stones were appearing. I had an incident with a ratepayer who clearly stated to me that a councillor informed him that a previous mayor and a previous council, it was them to blame. I then had another incident with a very verbal ratepayer in the main street in front of many witnesses, which was exceptionally unpleasant. I was then recommended to make a statement to the police, which I did. And I also indicated to the police at that time that I believe this individual was acting upon a social media post which singled myself out, giving my home phone number, etc., which was unappreciated. But like Councillor Hill, I totally get that we will be making decisions that at times community people don't like. And I really do think it's a matter of sucking it up. We should not be precious about ourselves. To perceived impact on councillors, every decision we make has a perceived impact upon councillors. So to single things out constantly, looking for the one that may trip you up as an individual is risky. Therefore, I would like to give council a potential heads up. I am already receiving some interesting comments in regards to the new toilet block. We will wait until it is open to get the full understanding of what may be. I will be voting against this one, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So anyone else before Councillor Arthur, you haven't spoken?
I'd just like to say that this thing's been around since 2018, I think. It's had more designs than Gretel, the boat that won the America Cup, because, like originally it was going to be bollards, and then because of all the underground cables and that, it was just uneconomical to do. It would have cost a fortune. And then it ran into COVID, and one of those things that just sort of always going to be done. It's been done, and I reckon it looks magnificent, to be quite honest with you. It's it's very hard sometimes to perceive what it's going to be like when you first start, but what it's finished, I reckon it's quite good.
Thank you, and that would be the point I'll be making around the new Taliban toilet blocks. Until the old ones are removed, it's going to be hard to perceive what the new ones will look like. No matter how many artist impressions they do, I think Councillor Hill, you alluded to that, it is hard to make an assessment. No one else wishes to speak. I'm at Councillor Roundtree closing.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy with the motion as it stands. I think what is useful here, like the CEO said, there's only been a few projects. There's been maybe 3 big projects we've had to deal with that were legacy items that you inherited and we inherited. I think it could be useful in the communication to have major project updates so that people know that there was a delay in putting those bollards in, or it was these reasons. I think just that journey is really important. And if nothing else, it helps later on when someone makes a complaint that you've got it. I don't feel this is about any particular preciousness. I just think it's about just keeping us informed of what's going on. And I think the wording reflects that. And what I'll say about the comments that are coming through about the sculpture is that I think when it was referred to as a sailboat, there was a perception that it might have had a pointy roof. Was that pointy roof removed due to a safety issue, or was it never there in the first place?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have not seen an original design. Because it was
I don't know.
already in manufacture when I started, and I never looked at what the drawings look like. I don't think anything's been removed. The only thing that we changed from the original design was the lowering of it, because at one stage it was going to have a very high plinth. That was lowered to make it more in proportion to where it was being positioned. But other than that, and I could refer to Kelly at the back, she may have more information that whether it was changed, but I don't think the design has been changed.
Okay. So with that, I'll close debate. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm about to put it, but I just make this one little comment. The report does allude to one of the principal issues around the rockery. And it's an issue which the previous Mayor, Councillor Yench, made me aware of with this particular individual. And that's why we did not try and make a point about part of the reason for doing this.
Sorry, can you please explain that
So
again?
if you read the report, the Chief Executive comments, you'll see the reasoning behind the rockery initially.
Yes,
So
understood.
I'd emphasise that is why it has been difficult to come out and say fully the real,
Yes.
one of the real reasons, and I say it's one of, but it is a driving one, or literally around this. So I just ask you to keep that in mind.
It was complex.
It's quite complex, this one. It's been quite complex for what, 3 years, 4 years, councillor, absolutely.
Yeah.
And is still complex.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The amended by the councillor motion is there in front of you. I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? So it's carried. But councillors Taylor, Arthur, can you turn your name badge around, councillor Arthur? I cannot see it.
Sorry.
Not that I need to
I was
see
going to
it.
say you've forgotten who he
I
is.
forgot. Well, I do forget. Councillors Rowntree, Qualman and Simmons voted for the motion. And councillors Yench and Hill voted against it, but it's still carried. Thank you for that discussion, councillors. I get to motions without notice.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
You, councillor Yench.
Firstly, I would like, we've had a fair bit of information on the tennis courts at Tailem Bend. And the motion I propose, I have a copy here. Someone could please give that to Ashley. I'll read out what I have. That the Coorong District Council formally approach the Tailem Bend Tennis Club to determine the future tenure of the existing facility with the view to their permanent relocation to the Tailem Bend hub. The Coorong District Council approached the family of the late Mr Frank Clapp and the Tailem Bend Tennis Club with the option of possible relocation of the memorial to a mutually agreed safe, prominent location at full council cost, as in cost to council. The Coorong District Council explore all options for further development or sale of this site, and if sold, all funds will be allocated to the Tailem Bend Sports Hub. And the final bit, all existing infrastructure and material required by the Tailem Bend Tennis Club be transferred to a site of their choosing at the council's cost. Now, Mr Mayor, I can wait for a seconder, or if there's going to be one,
We're not going to wait for a second. Councillor, I'm going to deem that you should move that as a notice of motion for the next council meeting. There's quite an extensive list.
It is.
And I think it would be unfair to debate that today because there's quite a considerable amount of information in that. I think there's no reason why that could not have been or cannot be next meeting a notice on motion, to be quite honest. You're aware that we are receiving a delegation later today that will partially impact on this subject. So I think due to the length of that and what in my view is not particularly urgent, I think the best we can do is you can move that next meeting as a notice of motion.
Then that will be done, Mr Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have another one.
All right, yeah, a second one. Try me.
What shorter this time?
That'd be very good.
That the Coorong District Council turned the $50,000 loan to the Tailem Bend Netball Club into a one-off grant.
Once again, the councillors need sufficient time to consider that, councillor, and once again,
Then, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to have that as a motion with notice for the next meeting.
if you wish that, you can do that now. Time to do that at the next motion. I would note that in council's discussions around that loan that while they may have initially thought it would be reasonable for 5 years, council themselves gave them up to 10 years. If I can take any reading of the publicity, they're going quite well in fundraising, and I take on board what you're saying. That would be a pretty interesting decision for council to make, and particularly if we couldn't make it today. And I might bring you to point 4 of the procedures should be sufficiently certain to give the community and decision makers confidence in deliberations undertaken at the meeting. I feel that just to land that in front of councillors like that would be a bit unfortunate because it does set some precedents.
All right, Mr Mayor?
Have you got any others?
No.
No, righto. Cheers. I move on to item 8, Office of the Chief Executive Officer, the street party costs and circumstance there. There's a recommendation. Someone move that way, please. Councillor Yench. Is there a seconder? Councillor Qualman, thank you. Is there any questions? All right, start with you, Councillor.
I'll wait until close, thank you.
Right. Councillor Qualman.
Oh, just a comment, if I might, Mr Mayor, it's got here traffic management, $3,792. And I did see we got an email from the CEO about encouraging even elected members, if they want to do, become a qualified traffic.
Not the elected members, councillor, but members of the public and staff, as per a previous minute.
About an email.
Yeah.
That was my email
Oh, sorry.
suggesting we should vote no.
Yeah.
I can't.
Anyway, don't worry about that. Continue,
Anyway,
sorry.
the question is, now you correct me, that's fine. That, if that was to improve a lot, that would save a bit of expense on the next one, because I just see, you know, we're paying another contractor all that amount of money, and if we can get a few local qualified traffic managers, would save that.
As you know, councillor, if you have read the emails, we are trying to get the community traffic wardens in place. It has been quite difficult due to COVID, due to the timing and due to the cost. And we're continuing to work towards that. It's one of the things we've recently focused on, but take on board that, for sure.
Yep, good.
Who else do I have? Councillor, I thought Councillor Roundtree had her arm up.
Yes. The positive short-term impacts felt on local businesses. Was that data sourced through that survey, or did they talk to the local businesses? How was that?
So Kelly's nodding her head at the last comment through you, Matt, that it was through discussions with the businesses on the day.
Down the Main Street and stuff, yeah. Second question, are we concerned that this could set a precedent for other towns wanting similar street parties funded by council in their towns, like the Christmas parties, or have we dug ourselves a bit of a hole here?
Through you, Matt. Through you. I don't know the answer to that. I think that given we had already committed to this one, there was nowhere to go in a sense. Maybe one of the ways to do it going forward, that I bring a report to council, that is there an appetite from the chamber to participate in these types of activities across the district, or do we name a couple that council will take the lead in, or do we accept that this was a once-on only and move away from it? And that would really be, I think, at the discretion of chamber about where you want to go with that. It's not unusual for councils to get involved with this type of activity in their council areas.
Taking the lead, though?
In my experience, yes. The thing with our particular council area is that we have a couple of towns, all of similar size, who would also expect that type of activity. Now, that may mean that if there's an appetite in the chamber to do that, we could allocate a budget for one premium event in the towns that we nominate, to say each year council takes the lead on that, and we spend up to $10,000. Now, whether it's a Christmas party or the street party or something else, it could be addressed like that.
So I think your question is around, we'd already started this one and then called it off the previous year. My takeout is, unfortunately, being Thursday night, it restricts a lot of people coming. And I would very much thank the staff involved that organised this, because it was a bit of I always find it interesting how people love having trucks coming down the main street. There you go. But I think we'd want to seriously consider another Thursday night event, but that would be constrained by that's the only night perhaps available in the format with motorsport. What I can remember after the trucks have been through is the sounds of the netball and football training still coming across the town, which meant we didn't have them here. So in respect of this particular event, the timing is what it is, and that's what I think makes it awkward. I think it's probably a discussion for a workshop around where this council sees its involvement in community events. And I suppose my broad view is that the community is best running most events themselves, and I particularly look at the Christmas parades or that other not aptly named thing at Menangi. They still run that fun run, do they?
The Australia Day fun run.
It didn't happen.
I never worked out how they put fun in it, quite honest.
Yeah, that's
So yes, but my view is that if a community drives it, it's not necessarily better, but it's more wholesome. But in this case, with the COVID requirements at the time,
It's added to the
it
cost.
was made it complicated. So I take on board that. Councillor Taylor, then Councillor Hill.
Another comment, Mayor. The day couldn't be changed because of the restrictions on the drivers. So
that's-
because they're participating from that night, basically, they usually have a dinner on a Thursday evening as well. So there's no other option for a street party apart from
Yeah, and that's
it's that day or no day.
particular weakness, unfortunately, with this particular sort of style function for that particular grouping.
It may change in the calendar, which may fit in more with other activities in the town. But it could be that this is the size of the street party in years to come, if it continues. But again, there's no guarantees either that the Bend will be awarded a future contract. So it's kind of a very fluid activity anyway. So it may disappear all on its own, depending on what happens in the calendar.
Councillor Hill.
We have to look at what, as a council area, we get out of participating and helping an event like this. I arrived just as the trucks were coming down the main street because we had to bump in at the motorsport park with our own activity. And it was absolutely fantastic. I thought it was one of the best spectacles we've had in Tailem Bend and possibly the Coorong district for a long time. It was brilliant. And I would just like through you to ask the tourism officer what the value of advertising of our council district and Tailem Bend would cost if we had to take out advertisements, because we got free publicity on the motorsport websites, the Facebook pages, and even some media attention as well through, on the actual supercars telecast. So, is it something that we should look at as a promotional tool for the whole council district, as opposed to just a one-off event that we might spend 15,000 on?
That's where you may before answer. What most councils have access to software called REM software, or there's a whole lot of versions, and you can plug in an event and it will give you what the economic value is to your particular district. We don't use that software, but I'm thinking about how we can acquire some of it or steal it or borrow it or find it, because it does give you some insight into what you're talking about. Kelly can talk to you about what the cost may be or what the benefit was in terms of the free promotion.
Perhaps before
And the 430,000 views on Facebook.
Before perhaps we start that, councillor, and some of us will remember we were on council when we had the start of one of the cycling races here in Tailem Bend. We had the start, and we're lucky at the start not the finish because it's far better. And even though that cost council a considerable amount of money to run at the time, it's about 2011, something like that. The marketing advantage of us being across the world on TV at that moment was probably well worth it, but it's very hard to quantify. So, Kelly, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to try and quantify it, but I think, councillors, we need to probably have a workshop around community events versus public value. Kelly.
So through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for that question, Councillor Hill. It's going to be a little bit difficult to quantify the exact dollar value. I would put that probably in excess of $20,000 to $30,000 of marketing and exposure that we've gained. So there's going to be short-term benefits and definitely long-term benefits with boosting the exposure to not only Tailem Bend and the businesses, but collectively the region as a whole. And I think coming out of COVID and the situation that we're in at the moment, anything that we can do to promote regions to not only South Australia, but the whole of Australia, definitely provides some long-term tourism and economic benefits to us. So,
Because we're at 4:30. We'll go over in a second to somewhere for this, haven't I?
Yes, I'm the mover, so
Oh, yeah.
close if you wish, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
Mr Mayor, it's
Hang on, Mr Mayor, I wonder.
Yes, briefly, councillor, yes.
I'm just wondering when we're going to get the true costing. You know, like you're reading through there, it's 18 staff work in the afternoon. The only costing we've got for staff is $3,000 for overtime. Now, don't come up with the idea they still get paid. So they get paid to do a job. They're not doing that job, they're doing something else. If they've worked, there's been 100 hours of staff work out there, it should be costed out, it's probably $35 an hour, so that's 3,500. There's no costing here for fencing. That didn't cost anything to put up. Did we hire the fencing? Did we buy the fencing?
Well, it was in there.
And I think, you know, like when you present something like this, we've got to get the true figures. And staff weren't donating their time all the time. And yeah, so a true figure is what we need. And I'd just like to make one other comment, Mr. Mayor.
So councillors, I've got a bit of a problem. I'm up against a 4:30 limit, not a limitation, but
It'll be very, very quick. The Tyndall Lions Club at the same time had applied to the council for a grant to help with their wool show and that, which has been an ongoing thing. Of course, COVID knocked the hell out of that. The council knocked them back. It never come to us as the councillors. It went to the executive, and the executive actually said that it's never been helped before, but in 17, council give $200, 2018 they give $200, and 2019 they gave $500, but the council couldn't even find that they'd given the money to them. So, you know, like there's got to be some equality somewhere along the line, and if we can do this for this, we do the Menindee fun run. We supply all the staff, we pay all the people, so the volunteers don't have to do it.
okay.
That is my, and the other thing is, why are we supporting a private enterprise?
I don't want to labour the point, councillor, because I'd like to at 4:30 join items, whatever is 11, around our elected member review, as I've said earlier, get finished. Because those are questions I think we should go through in a workshop around this subject. I think they're too short to answer now.
Delay, Mr. Mayor. You wish.
I'd like, if we finish debate, and I think we have, because I think there's questions here that can't be answered in this chamber.
Accept it. Let's go do it.
That's because you're.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'm super brief, and that is, I think this was the best run event. And I think the key is the staff involvement. The professionalism that was shown was absolutely brilliant. That's why this one particularly was such a good success. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, there's a recommendation. I believe it's just been moved. Is it read? Those in favour? Those against? It's not carried unanimously. Councillor Arthur was the councillor who voted against it. Thank you. I'm going to take councillors to item. Is Craig available yet? It's probably more my question. Craig Rowe. Yes. Councillors, can we move to item, and I find it, 11.4, which is the elected representation review report. We've had some discussions, but we need to formally adopt this, and I would make the point that we need to do this today to meet the statutory requirements. Councillor Rountree.
I'm happy to move it.
I've got to find it, which is more problem.
68.
Page 68.
You're moving
Yes, I'll
as it's
move.
read, 68, councillor.
Page 257, 56.
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Move round, councillor.
Yeah, use mine, mate.
No, I'll get it the best. Move, councillor Rountree, seconded, councillor Yench. 68.
Oh.
It is highlighted here, thank you. Just don't hit the wrong highlight strip. No, I haven't found it on 68 yet. So that's, sorry, I'll read the recommendation. That the council receive and note the elected representation review report, and having taken into consideration submissions and feedback provided by the community, commence community engagement on the proposed future composition and structure of Coorong District Council as outlined in the elected representation review report, which includes the principal member of council be a mayor elected by the community, the council area not be divided into wards, and the future elected body of council comprise the mayor and 7 area councillors, all of whom shall represent the whole of the council area and shall be elected by the community and council-wide elections. Councillors, have you got any questions to our consultant on this one, Craig Rowe, around this, since he's available? Craig, have you got anything to add to the process?
Good afternoon. No, not really. Members, the paper that you have reflects your in principle decision. It forms the basis of the next consultation stage. And after that stage, which is 3 weeks, minimum 3 weeks, we'll be back talking to you about submissions and get you to finalise your decision, whether it's the decision that's reflected in the report or some amendment. That's about it, members.
Okay. Any questions to Craig, councillors?
Mr Mayor, I've been quite happy with the presentation, the way it's been presented. We have workshopped this a couple of times. We've talked about it. We can't make a decision until today, so this is the decision we make, and I'm all for it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Being no more questions, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. There you go, Craig. It's that simple.
Yeah, thank you very much, members. Much appreciated, and we'll get that, organise that to go out to public consultation ASAP.
No worries. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks. I'm going to move us back to item 8.2, deed of variation, revitalising Rowcan Walk, Stay, Ride and Play. There's a recommendation in your agenda. Councillor Roundtree.
Happy to move that way.
Righto. There's a seconder. Councillor Qualman is the seconder. Is there any discussion around the motion? None. Therefore, you'll close.
Closed.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So, council policies review 9.1. Procurement policy review. Councillors, there'll be a recommendation when I find it. Adopt the procurement policy as amended. Councillors, Councillor Hill, you're moving that way. Is there a seconder? Councillor Yench, thank you. Is there a discussion?
Just a question, Mr Mayor, regarding item 4. And I find it after all these are crossed out, but I've got it here. Direct payment, direct purchases, 0 to $15,000. It seems a very large amount to have as a direct payment rather than going to tender of some description. Method of procurement, point 4 on page, don't know, hasn't got a page number. I'm afraid, 9 of 23. Where the value of the purchase is less than 15,000, the direct sourcing method will be utilised as per the procurement table listed at clause 5.2. This method may be utilised for purchase for a single established source or provider without first obtaining completing bids. But just the $15,000 is a rather substantial amount.
So through you, Matt, what the intent is here that we keep in line with what types of purchases we do throughout the year. It was 10,000, 15,000 now seems to be in line with what we need to do. In reality, there's probably not much difference whether it's 10 or 15. We just know that between that figure, we were getting more and more moving into that bracket between the 10 and the 15. So it just smooths the operations and makes things quicker.
And it refers to also 5.2, the listeners clause 5.2. Now 5.2 is the table provides the minimum requirements for relating to procurement method for the purchase of goods, services based on purchase total value. You've got 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15. Mm-hmm. And there seems to be a little bit of ambiguity there within what's in point 4 and what's in point 5.2.
So in what way, Councillor?
Well, you've got ones, it can be up to 15,000. And then you've then you go refer to 5.2 in it, and then it goes to 0 to 5,000.
It's really just giving staff guidance about each of those categories within the 15. It doesn't mean within the 15 we won't go to market and get 3 written quotes or 3 verbal quotes. It's a guide, but at up to 15,000 we can do those types of things in terms of purchasing.
So I just wanted to query on that because it just seemed a
So you,
substantial amount of money.
how would you like it clarified, councillor?
Oh, my worry is the 15,000. You know, 15,000 is a fair bit to go and get without having 2 or 3 quotes or something like that. You're not buying a box of biros down the street, are you?
No.
But if that's the way that the executive feel, we'll go along with it.
Anything else, councillor?
No, that's all.
Anyone else around this agenda item?
I was originally supporting of Councillor Arthur's view that it was probably too much to not, but then I suppose when you consider what council do spend on items in the scheme of things, it probably isn't up there. And I had a look through how you go about doing it, and there were instances where you may call for quotes or things like that as well. And I think we just have to trust your judgment on that one.
Thank you. Anyone else? If that's the case, we'll close. Councillor Hill, will you close?
I'll just make one comment. There has to be a cut-off point at somewhere, and you don't want it to be to the impediment of the staff to be able to do their jobs. So, yeah, I'll close. Thank you.
Thank you. Debate is closed. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Item 2, roadside waste, recycling and green organics collection service policy review. There's a recommendation there. Is as amended. Councillors, does someone move that way? Councillor Rountree. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hill, thank you. Is there any debate, councillors, around this review?
I think it was a good policy, made a lot of sense.
Councillor Arthur, you indicating you're going to speak?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to ask about the e-waste. E-waste means electronic wastes, television, computers, monitors, all that sort of thing. Now, they are supposed to be free. We have now got in the service charge. I brought this up when the fees and services there. That is, a Commonwealth government put a levy on the manufacturer now. And I brought this up probably 4 or 5 years ago when we were actually trying to charge people to drop the TV so they were on the road. And it was actually a free service through the Commonwealth government. And that's why we have at the depots the trailers to put those things in, and they should be free. A part of it says see clause 5.12 for non-curbside disposal options. I'll then go on to hard waste, which is still in there and excludes e-waste, and then we got charges for various things like batteries, and that was fair enough. And that also says see clause 512 for non-curbside disposal options. But there is no 512. It goes to 511 and that's it. 512 e-waste has all been crossed out. It hasn't been put in.
Is this policy containing itself to what we pick up curbside or what we deliver, what people bring us to us in the depots?
Curbside and
both?
And
Sorry.
waste
Recycling
management stations.
So through you, Mayor, with the e-waste one, I'm just checking, I think, and Matt, you may know, I thought the free was a point in time with the Commonwealth government and that scheme may have finished. I would need to check that because...
It was a charge they were putting on the manufacturers.
No, there's something just, so you may, in the back of my head that said that was a point in time and it's now finished, that arrangement. But I would have to check.
Well, I don't think if it has finished, I don't think anyone knows about it.
So councillor,
Definitely.
if I was to read the last paragraph of 5.12,
Yeah.
from time to time, council will also promote special campaigns for the collection and disposal of particular wastes, such as e-waste. These individual campaigns will be advertised in the media and council's website. So that was being crossed out.
Yep.
In this policy review. So your question is around on what basis A, is it being crossed out, and B whether
Well, both
e-waste.
these two new, well, they're not new, they're virtually the same, but they're still in, refer to 512, and there is no 512 now in the new system.
And 512 is not in the policy now.
And maybe, is it 512 has to still be in there, Bob, or not?
I don't know. We're just seeking some confirmation on that, councillors. On your question, is there any other questions while we seek confirmation of that?
My other question, Mr Mayor, is 6 years ago, Councillor Yentz, you will remember, I think Councillor Barry moved a motion and I seconded it, that we trial the waste transfer stations of, if you brought in your rubbish in the, and it was divided into waste and recyclables, that you would get a rebate. There was going to be a trial period for 6 months and never ever happened. In the day and age now of recyclables and all that sort of thing, can council once again look at bringing that in on a trial basis? So if you bring in a trailer load of stuff, Tatiara Council do it, Wattle Range Council do it, Mark Council do it. If you've got it, say it's $60 for a trailer load and you've got it into recyclables and waste, and the operator says, right, you've got half and half, you pay $30. We pay $70 a tonne at the present moment. It's going to keep going up and up and up on what you put into waste. Say less you put into waste. At the present moment, they don't care. It all goes into the waste bin, because why would they worry about transferring? Because they pay $60 for that trailer. So may I suggest that
So given that,
just have a look at the possibility of doing that as a trial.
that would have been a motion of a previous council, which is fluxed. So councillor, I'd suggest that perhaps we put that on the agenda item for a Roads and Infrastructure Committee meeting.
Yeah, well, it's going.
Perhaps I think our next meeting may be at Menangie. I've got a feeling. Someone help me out. At Menangie, we perhaps pay a visit to the dump, to the waste transfer station on that day and look at how that might be applicable. I think it's a separate thing to adopt in this policy at this stage. We're trying to find out about the e-waste thing at this stage. Otherwise, we might seek to adjourn the policy.
Through you, Mayor, we can, 5.12 is not supposed to be deleted. It needs to stay there.
So councillors.
Mr Mayor, can I just, it doesn't affect this policy. It does affect the fees and charges.
Yeah.
Because we are charging at the present moment.
So, yeah, I'm aware of that, but that's a separate, I think, item to adoption of the policy. It's no different to a hard waste trial. It's what I think you're referring to there. So 5.12, sorry, should be in the policy. It's been omitted, but it should be there. Is that what I'm taking? Looking at, so it'll be re-added to the policy if you adopt it.
5.3, Mayor, one says e-waste and other hard waste items as defined are prohibited material for curbside waste, which they are, and recycling collection. But many of these items, yep, let's leave it there. It's fine. Yep.
So that entire section is being left in the policy, councillor. Any further questions? Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a comment, if I may, Mr Mayor, in relation to what Councillor Arthur said about recycles. I can recall about the Taylor Bend transfer station, 5, 6 years ago, or might be a bit longer. You used to be able to take cardboard out there and they accept recyclables, but that's all changed now. So it was once, must have been a trial.
So over the next 12 to 18 months, I'm looking at our director, we'll be moving to potentially the option of a regional recycling contractor, and all this will be discussed, I'm sure, in the next 12 to 18 months more. Any further questions around the motion or the recommendation, which is the motion? As amended, and amended means 5.12 is reinserted in the policy, councillors. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Councillor Roundtree, you're closed. Thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Councillors, I propose a 9-minute break. 9-minute break. At 5 o'clock, we have a deputation. So 9 minutes, be back in the room, please. We have a deputation from the Tailem Bend and District Community Sporting and Recreation Hub. Terry Connolly. Terry, come up, please, and we'll give you 10 minutes, but as long as you need. And Mitch, give Terry the mic. It's important that everyone hears this. And afterwards, councillors, you're entitled to ask some questions of the presenter, but if we have the mic and someone in the back can help with the answer, that'll be fine.
Thank you.
You're going to be on Zoom too. No, it's impossible. Floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Working? All hear me? Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and elected members. I'm filling in actually for Dwayne Edwards, our president, because he's been up to Darwin and he's home, I think, today or tomorrow, and he has to isolate, or he might be still up there. So please bear with me while I go through our report in regards to the Recreation Hub at Tailem Bend. So the purpose of this deputation is to acknowledge the positive relationship sporting clubs in the community have with the Coorong District Council, and to provide a snapshot of the benefits of a regional hub in our community, and hopefully solicit your support for this initiative. So a bit of background on the project. In 2017, the Tailem Bend Hub Committee finalised the 2017-21 strategic plan, which was developed with the assistance of key stakeholders in accordance with the federal and state government strategic goals. And as per the community vision plan adopted by the council on 23rd February 2001. This project meets all 5 strategic outcomes: economy, infrastructure, community, environment, and leadership. The intent of the project is to provide the existing and future population of our communities with an appropriately scaled facility to meet the growing sporting and recreational needs of the community. The playing and associated amenity is to be developed at a regional/premier standard for each code, including unisex amenities, which accommodates all gender sporting participation. As you would be aware, the sporting environment is changing, and we all have a responsibility, or we believe as a committee, to reflect these changes and provide facilities that best caters for diversity and growth in our games. Our players and our volunteers have called for better facilities of the right quality to play and work. We believe the Regional Sports Hub will deliver a high standard of sports facilities suitable for regional, state and even national level competitions, and address sport participation and community growth. The Regional Sports Hub facility will cater for resident and visitor populations in the Murraylands, sporting associations, as well as country, state and national sporting competition in the following sports: Australian rules footy, cricket, tennis, bowls, netball. All of these sports are in the top 10 most popular organised sports. But having said that, our vision is to be the preeminent regional hub for sport and recreation clubs in the Murrayland region. Strategically, we have the opportunity to integrate a variety of community services in the one central accessible location for recreation, sport, community and social services. Economically, the facility will be shared by a number of different sports, bringing economic benefits from sharing overheads and maintenance cost efficiencies. And we see that as a huge benefit, and I'll just touch on that briefly now. The benefits are, we believe, many and varied. Community and sport go hand in hand. There will be opportunities for integration, as I said before, of sports and recreation with other community social and health services and organisations. We believe that greater value, as I said before, from recreation and sport can be achieved through co-location and management of facilities that not only provide a greater range of participation opportunities, but also build stronger community through a sense of connection. Therefore, our regional hub will be a multi-user facility which will be designed and programmed to meet a broad range of outcomes. That will include, but not limited to, a health club, another fancy, couple of fancy words for 24/7 gym, education and training, community services and community events, etc. On a district scale, so I've put them into three components, district, regional and state. The first one on a district scale, improve links and opportunities for collaboration between sports clubs, service providers and other hub partners, for example, schools, to deliver targeted community programs. The hub will provide a focus for association competition as well as service a local catchment to provide a mix of recreational, competitive and program formats of participation. The facility will also provide a primary function as a local finals venue or a central venue that facilitates regular competition that for multiple clubs and teams. So just on that, like last year, COVID year, the River Murray Football League decided to hold all their finals, a Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, at one club, which was Johnson Park in Murray Bridge. Okay, and that used to be done many years ago, but then clubs just thought they weren't getting the cut of the spoils, so it was decided to rotate the finals each year. Last year, through necessity, we all come under the one umbrella. The clubs did share the spoils, but from the management and president of the River Murray Football League, we were able to manage that function better. Okay, our volunteers were all in one spot. Our administration was easy to administer. The ticketing was not a problem. The setting up of the oval was not a problem. Instead of having to do it 4 times, we're just doing it the once or maybe twice for the whole finals. And we believe it was a success. And it may even go back to that. Hence the regional hub here, because I can see, well, just touching on that too, and just a little bit of promotion of ourselves. I was at the River Murray Football League. The Rural City Council of Murray Bridge seen fit to award the RMFL an award as Event of the Year. So we know it can work, okay? There's also interleague matches that we have on a district scale. So Hills, we just had it out at Karoonda where a lot of people go. But when it comes back to the River Murray's turn, it always seems to be in Murray Bridge. And I was the president of the league and I understood why they're having it in Murray Bridge, okay? However, now I'm not the president of the River Murray Football League. I can see that if we've got a regional hub and everyone shares the spoils, why wouldn't you be doing it here? And why wouldn't you be doing the finals here? On a regional scale, the hub will meet the standards required to host major state or regional level competitions and events. The hub will have the capacity to host community events such as festivals. The hub is located as a site with close links to major road networks and connections to public transport and community facilities. And it will provide an administration base for volunteers, clubs and associations. On a state level, the hub will provide for the highest level of sporting competition, which may include state events and competitions, whether it be bowls, whether it be tennis, whether it be cricket, whether it be football. High spectator numbers. And if I just go back to that state events for cricket, you can see now that with the cost of running events in Adelaide or any area like that, just take the Sheffield Shield, for instance, they don't play that at the Adelaide Oval. They go out to the suburbs now. Why wouldn't they be coming to the regional hub here to play a district game, to play a state game? And it also, we could have the opportunity to host major community events, such as the Sample Country Championships. So we've had country championships in place since 1994. That's 24 men's leagues and 6 women's leagues gather on a weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to play out for the country championship. Prior to COVID, it was at Port Pirie. Prior to that, it was at Renmark. And then 2 weekends' time, it'll be at Victor Harbour. Okay, so we haven't got the opportunity to do that here. So we believe with a regional hub, we will. And why? Over 500 players, 1,000 volunteers are involved on that weekend. I'll be down there representing the Sample. It is a huge event. It also provides a significant injection into the local economy with around another 4,500 supporters, officials and supporters attending. And according to the research of La Trobe University, for every dollar invested, and this is just football, and I know you've all heard this before, but alone there is at least $4.40 in social return. In previous years, the championships have generated in excess of $500,000 to towns such as Port Pirie, Murray Bridge, Port Augusta and Port Lincoln. It is huge that Channel 7 will televise next Saturday or Sunday a sample game. And I think it's Crows versus South Adelaide, because South Adelaide's area is Victor Harbour, okay? So that's there. It is a huge event. And I can see us holding one of...
Terry, I need to bring you to the 10-minute rule. You told me you've had it done in no time. But...
Well, it's only 7, Mr Mayor.
Just give you a couple of minutes to wind up.
Okay, well,
You'll have a crunch point, I know you.
Okay. Well, I'll just wind up with the future and I'll just read it out very quickly. It is well documented that sporting clubs are a crucial connector in rural communities and their closure can lead to isolation, anxiety, depression amongst former patrons. However, it is a fact of life that change is constant in country sport, as it is with many aspects of country life. Regardless of location, all our leagues and clubs will experience some change over time. That is without doubt. Therefore, as administrators, that's us on the committee here of sporting clubs, it is our combined obligation to cast our eyes into the future and proactively adapt to the changing landscape rather than reactively adapting to forced change. And I'll just finish off by saying the structures of our leagues were put in place many, many, many years ago. And if we were to set them up now, it wouldn't look like it is. And we have the opportunity to have a hub here and maybe embrace the Southeast, the Mallee, just into one league. It is well established that in addition to providing a physical and mentally healthy outlet for all our participants, it is also part of the cultural fabric of country communities. Social connection, emotional connection, a sense of contribution, a feeling of significance. It keeps our kids safe and it gives them a purpose. The physical and mental health benefits delivered by sport to the community are simply astonishing. Yet, without the appropriate infrastructure and facilities to support physical activities, many of these social benefits will be left unrealised, Mr Mayor. And the regional sports hub will be a prime destination for sports and recreation in our community and region. And therefore, we respectfully ask the council and the elected members for the support and funding so we can solicit a project manager to assist us with our project. And I apologise for going over time.
I wanted to get you to that last point, the word funding.
Right, okay. I could have started at the front, Mr Mayor.
We're used to waiting for that last question.
Okay. Any questions?
Councillors, questions of Terry? Or any, oh, look, I'm happy for the committee to answer if they know more. Councillor Taylor.
I have a motion for this, Mayor. Do you want it now or after questions?
I've thought this through, and I think since I got the last word, funding, I think it would be better if council asked the CEO to provide a report around this subject since I got to that last word, funding, because that's the word where people ask to put money in to fund this going forward. And I think that's the appropriate way. I thank you for your thoughts, but I think it's the status of that this is a deputation. I'm probably more interested in if you've got questions of the deputation or Terry in particular around what they're proposing. And I'm well aware that some of you are on the committee. Don't rush in.
Just a quick question, procedural, Mayor, why would this not be a motion?
Because it's a deputation.
We still shouldn't have a motion to say, ask the CEO to do.
We don't need one.
Okay, well, so long as it gets picked up, then that we're doing it.
Deputation. I'm sure they'll hold us accountable. Over this week. Questions to Terry about the proposal, its ambit, its scope, what sort of money we think we need over time. I'll start with Councillor Hill. Timeframes.
I'll just ask you, mentioned about having state cricket matches and football is what it played. Has there been any indication that if you got this hub up and running that they would definitely be putting games your way? Or this is just a speculation at this stage?
With the cricket, that was a speculation, but with football, that comes up for tender every year. So every council was asked to tender for the championships, and I couldn't think of a better place to hold it. And as I'm on the committee now, the sample maybe, no, that's not right. But they do come up for tender, and Victor Harbour obviously got it this year, but yep.
And a supplementary question to that one.
Absolutely.
I noticed with the design that there's no stands for, there's parking around each, but there's only a limited number of car parks that can be accommodated by an oval. Is there any plans for the future to have some sort of grandstand or?
There's a function area, a two-story function area that will accommodate a large amount of people, yes.
You must have a different colour to yours. I don't have that.
Councillor Roundtree, you had some questions?
Yes, but I just don't have that paper. So my question.
Right.
So basically what you're looking for is funding to get a project officer to basically scope this out and come up with cost. Do you yourself have an idea of what that cost might be, or have any thoughts around that matter?
I honestly don't know what project managers' costs come at, but
Just thinking around about a full-time position for 12 months would be around about the 80,000 mark.
that's what we're looking for.
And this person would then scope all that out and come back with a shovel-ready project, I suppose,
Yeah.
that we would look for grants for,
Well,
or is
A
that what
lot of work's been done in this area, and,
Okay.
and I'm just new to it, and someone might want to put their hand up in the back. But we have the people just can't get to the point where we need a project. We need
Pull
someone
it
with
all
a
together.
professional and expertise. And then we'll be shovel ready. But I think Tony wants to say something at the back.
Amy, I need you to come to the mic, please, you know. And if you just borrow Councillor Qualman's mic. I know you've got a very good voice.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we had a verbal commitment from the Regional Development Board for $40,000 to contribute towards this. So we would be looking for top-up funding through the Coorong District Council, please.
Thanks for that. That's... Any other questions to Terry or any of the group?
Can I ask you a question? What role does the staff play in this particular type of exercise? Not just maybe here, but just generally across the board. What's the role, Mark?
Yeah, the mic, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Star Club is a key stakeholder, being the Office of Reckless Sport and Racing's rep in the region. So I've been from the 2017, from Woe to Go, we've started this project. I can tell you that this project is meeting all the game Office of Reckless Sport and Racing's strategic plan goals at the moment, and that's increasing physical activity and creating a sports hub. So we've researched that Star Club going forward, or the Office of Reckless Sport and Racing's field officer that we might be known to be called soon, will have a key continuing interest to help with funding, stakeholder relationships, lobbying, etc., as we do now for all sporting hubs in the Marylands and clubs.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Taylor.
Councillors, first turn, when do you need this?
ASAP. You're asking when we need the funding? Well, whenever you can do it, but sooner the better for us to get this on, so we can get it moving. There's funds coming available in October, I'm told, through Tony Passon. He's attended a couple of meetings and he's promised some cash. So we want to get this done so we can get it ready, shovel ready, if you like, that's the terminology they use. But
So you think which funding is Tony Passon talking about? I'm not government funding. Do you know?
BBRF.
BBRF, thank
Yeah.
you.
Mark, again.
Better regions.
Terry, what's the,
No, Councillor Arthur will speak before you speak, Mark.
sorry, Mark.
To the
What's your-
speaker,
your
councillor, you're laying
project?
back in your chair.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Step forward.
What is the concept of doing it? You know, you've got buildings everywhere over there now. Are you going to knock down maybe greenfield site, or are you going to build onto what you've got, because you've got cricket club there, which has just got grants and council money to upgrade.
I agree.
Is that now going to be gone and something else?
No, the cricket will stay there. Tammy's trying to say something to me.
Mixture of both.
Well, a mixture of both, but you would know better than anyone, the change rooms, it was built for horticultural purposes in 1934. That certainly will be demolished, but we'll keep the stone. But no, we'll have the club rooms and the netball, obviously, the netball, but we would have the new function area, and we would like, obviously, if we're going to play state games of SANFL, we would have to be SANFL compliant in all of that area. So that's our vision there. But I understand that, we're putting money towards that and money over here. It needs to be all consolidated now, and that's how we are operating into the future.
Have you got a plan? You have that's this for $12 million. Have you got a plan to do that in sections?
Yes.
Because you're not going to get $12 million.
No, it's plans in section 1, 4 sections. Section 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, so it is in sections.
Yep. So we think with Tony Passion's support, we can get section 1 up. As long as we get this project manager to get us on the right track with all the expertise that's needed around that. I certainly got no idea.
Mark, you want to join the conversation?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, I just wanted to touch on the funding being grant ready and infrastructure or shovel ready, as we call it. Yes, the Office of Wreck and Sport and Racing have infrastructure grants that are closing on the 4th of August. We're not going to meet that for this time, but we possibly might meet if any come out October, November, December, later in the year. The timeframes, that's what we're going to be trying to work with, along with the BBRF funding. In terms of the cricket comment there from you, Councillor Arthur, that was an immediate need that we wanted to get the cricket facilities going straight away. So it was a matter of act now whilst that happened. Now, I think I did 7 different grants for that.
While you're there, Mark, the Office of Rec and Sport grants is only, the next lot is only 20 million for the whole of the state, isn't it? For infrastructure. Oh, no, infrastructure is only 5 million, isn't it?
I can't remember the pool of money for different projects. There's 3 streams within it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just can't remember on the top of my head the pool.
I think it's 23 and 5. 3 for it's general equipment job.
It's competitive.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, Councillor Taylor?
Terry, you probably, well, you may not know this one, but for the netball club representatives, maybe, have the tennis club moved already, or are they still at the original location?
So they have been to have a look and at the premises and to work out with us about storage and that sort of stuff. So at the moment, no, they haven't moved, but yeah, they're on that. Yeah.
So just for the.
Yeah, the lines are ready. It's just
Just for the recording, so the question was around, has the tennis club moved yet? And the question is in progress, is the answer.
It is.
Thank you. No, sorry. We got any more questions, councillors? We're nearly done. There being no more, Terry, thank you very much for stepping in and taking more than 10 minutes, I can guarantee you. But it's much appreciated, and I thank very much the community for coming tonight, and we will seek a report next meeting around what we can do in this space. That's the best way to go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
Turn that mic off, please. Grab that, councillors, and I'm not letting the councillors out. Got a fair way to go yet.
Good to see it. That's a good idea, yeah.
We'll get it later, we'll get a leave. So where are we? Item number 9.3, public interest disclosure policy review, councillors. There is a recommendation
Happy to move that way, Mayor.
Councillors Roundtree and Hill, I believe, are the mover and seconder. Any discussion around that policy? We will close.
Closed.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 4, fraud, corruption, misconduct and maladministration prevention policy review. Someone move that way, please. No rush. Against, you're moving that, presume?
Yes.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Qualman, is there any discussion around that at all? Closing.
Closed.
Thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 5, a risk management policy review.
I'm happy to move that way.
It's gone off of my system, but anyway. You'll move that way, Councillor Roundtree, I heard on
Yes.
the voice. Is there a
Yes.
seconder? Don't rush me. Councillor Corman, thank you. Any debate at all?
Yes.
Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's passed unanimously. Section 41 and Section 43 subsidiaries. Number 1, the Audit and Risk Committee minutes of the meeting on the 8th of June. The recommendation to receive those minutes, councillors. Don't rush me. Councillor Hill. Your seconder. Councillor Roundtree, thank you for that. Any discussion on those minutes? Being none, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 2, the Centennial War Memorial Hall Committee. Minutes of their meeting on the 14th of May. Councillor Arthur. Seconder will be Councillor Roundtree. Is there any discussion around?
There's one question.
Yes,
Has
certainly.
information in relation to the Hall's recommendations been communicated back to the Hall Committee? Or is this a job that's given to the elected member representative?
It's not a job for the elected, for you, Mayor. By the 1st of July, we will have a process in place that will fully close that loop off.
Excellent. Very happy to hear it. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay. No debate further? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Angarinda Botanic Gardens Committee, minutes of the meeting on the 26th of May.
Yes, Mr.
Councillor Jentz, you're moving. You're seconder. Councillor Corn. Any discussion at all? Being none.
Closed.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 4, Murraylands and Riverland Local Government Association minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of May at Karoonda. Want to move that way, please? Councillor Jentz. Seconder will be Councillor Hill. Thank you. Any debate, discussion, information required?
With all of these sorts of documents, I think they're so motherhoody in their statements. I think it's good. It's always good to have a plan, but I'm a big fan of seeing some KPIs that are measurable. For instance, in a 4-year period, the KPIs is commenced implementation of a service agreement with RDA, held a public health and wellbeing forum, and identify strategic partnerships and projects. To me, they're very weak, very mild outcomes. I know that they're going to be easy to achieve. I just think sometimes I'd like to see these documents fleshed out to tangible things.
Good for you, Mayor. Given it's not our organisation, but the minutes of each of the minutes for this organisation, we bring back to council in the info doc. So I suspect it's like any other organisation, they will have then their operational plan sitting under that. So the strategic Plans are generally that motherhood statement type of thing, and then the operational plans are the things that turn into action. So you will see the actions coming from the minutes as they roll out over a 4-year period.
So the other thing then, should we be endorsing it or just noting it? Because we have no say in, us as a committee here don't have any say in how it all happens. I'm just wondering whether the better word is just to note it than endorse it, because endorse it says we agree with it all, I suppose.
I would think the council needs to endorse it.
Does it?
It's the 8 councils acting as one.
Okay.
I think that's the words why they're being there.
Why they're there.
Just take, for example, councillor, your first point around working with the RDA. I can't reinforce how important that is going forward in terms of federal funding for
Absolutely.
things like the previous deputation, to be quite blunt. But I know that is well underway, that negotiation between RDA and LGA in the same region, fortunately, is well underway.
Fair enough.
Any further discussion?
Just, Mayor, the regional waste and resource recovery strategy motion there, doing it on a regional basis. There's a concept that some of the councils would still, well, the concept is that some of the councils still keep, or virtually all of them still keep doing what they are now until that project's put up. Our contract is finished, is that correct?
I understand that we're in a contract extension position at the moment.
Got an extension. Are we also, as part of this, because at the couple of conferences I've been there, the councils are actually looking back at doing their own pickups and delivering to these central things. You know, I believe in the minutes there, we're going out to contract for our waste pickup. Can't we do a competitive tender ourselves to compare us doing it compared to a contractor?
There we go there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The collection of waste is economies of scale process, and the industry standard at the moment is cooperative, contracts. As an example, Adelaide Hills Regional Waste Management Authority, Fleurieu Regional Waste Management Authority, where a number of councils co-op their services and get greater economies of scale for things like recycling, contracts with one particular provider for bin lifts. Instead of getting 2,000 or 3,000 bin lifts a week, they might get 15,000 to 20,000 bin lifts. So the economies of scale are greater, which drives the cost down.
So, councillor, my understanding, and I think it's in the information document here today, I'm trying to think where I read it recently.
An email.
That's it. An email that the CEO sent out to us, is that we're under no obligation as part of this regional contract.
I realise
that. And I've been there before, where then we might be left a bit sort of stranded if we didn't take the action. But it would be prudent to be considering it, but I would think it would be prudent to compare our present cost against a regional tender. And at this stage, it would appear we could slip quite easily into a regional tender in terms of we already have 3 bins. The only process would be around food into organic, probably, at this stage. We take on board what you're saying.
But at this resource conference, one of the things was, was it Pete and the soil mob?
Peat soil.
They can't get enough green waste. They've got a depot at Brinkley. We cannot put our food waste into our green bins at the present moment because the EPA won't let us. We get a lot of green waste at the depots from the general concept that we use for topping. So part of our new strategy may be to look at that, supplying that green waste to get the household waste out of the bins for rubbish.
So, councillor, my point would have been that at the moment we do keep our green waste, as in garden waste, put over our tail and bend pit or site, and that is probably going to be nearly completed around the same time as a new contract. So it might be fortuitous if we wanted to convert over. At the moment, we actually require some covering material for that. That's why the position up till now has been that we'll be very much encouraged at that point. Food waste, which I understand from most reports I've seen, is around 40% of the putrescible waste into that stream at that point and contribute to any of the green waste recyclers and part of the circular economy. So I think we just need to let the process of a regional tender take its path and see where it ends. Because like as I would have just said, we're in a reasonable position to just join that contract at that point or go a different way.
Well, I think the general concept is that they may set up a regional
Yeah.
area, you know, it might be Tailem Bend.
Well, they might.
Something central. But, you know, we've.
It'd be more likely in the Riverland Council. No particular one in the Riverland. I'm trying to work out where we are. MRLGA minutes, sorry. Is there any other questions? Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. I move to item 11, Corporate and Community Report. Number 1 is the SA Coastal Councils Alliance. Councillor Roundtree.
Happy to move.
Happy to move that way. Thank you. The second, Councillor Quammen. Any discussion, questions around this?
It's like a very
Mr.
important group to be involved in.
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask a question? What is this? It's another
one.
Dumb little thing that's going to talk to the government and get nothing done? Because it's proposed SACCA sponsored by the LGA, Limestone Coast LGA. Now, as we know, the coastal money, I think, say it's $300 million, $280 million is going to Adelaide and $20 million for the rest of the South Australian coast.
It's nowhere near that amount of money, I can guarantee.
Yeah. So, what are they going to do? They're just going to be a lobby group and they're going to employ someone paying 50 grand a year. So, what is there? I've read through this. I can't work out what value, except that we have got coastal, what value are we going to do?
I've had several meetings with the people, I suppose, setting this up. Our council's in a pretty interesting position. I think we're probably the only council without any ratable land in the coast, but with a very long coastline, which makes it a bit awkward. And you'll see it's proposed that we join Southern and Hills part of that from the point of view of a membership or association. It is a good discussion, and the question for us is, how far will we be involved inland as well, in terms of inside the Murray Mouth, which is still a bit up in the air. My view is that if we're not in it, we won't know. And if I thought we only had 5 kilometres of coast, I wouldn't be so worried, but we've got a considerable amount, and I think we need to be interested. Councillor Yench. I'm going to let the CEO go at this point, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with what you've said and support it wholeheartedly. The issues are exactly as you say, the inland potential inundation. There have been lots of attempts to get LiDAR mapping a lot further than 2 kilometres in from the coast. We have the barrages, we have the lakes. Yes, it is vitally important that we are part of this because it does affect a very significant amount of our district, even though there's no rateable property on the coast. The fact is we need to be at the table.
Thank you. Any other debate? Councillor Roundtree, you're closed. Put the motion there. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 2 is the delegations update. Is it gone? Yes, Mr. Mayor. Sticky fingers here. You've moved Councillor Yench. A seconder. Councillor Hill, thank you. And that's a delegations procedural issue. Is there any discussion or debate, councillors? Being none. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 3, Community Land Management Plan, Dixon Reserve, Tailem Bend. This is to put it out to public consultation, I believe, as required in the Act, and I'm sure it hasn't been revised since 2012. Councillor Roundtree, you're moving. There's a seconder. Councillor Quammen, thank you. Is there any discussion around that? It's not all of Dixon Reserve, if you saw the coloured map either, which is interesting in itself. Being no more discussion, councillor, your closing. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 4, we've already dealt with earlier in the meeting. Number 12.1, waste transfer station opening hours.
A comment on that one, please, Mayor.
You can have a comment or a general question. How's that sound?
Sounds, general question's good.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is that the more opening times are reduced, the less people will use the service and it becomes a bit of a vicious cycle. I understand the stats around it, but the more you reduce something, you're never going to increase the use of it. You're just going to make people move and do something different. So I'm a little bit concerned about that.
Well, as director, this revolves around particularly the amount of people coming in the last hour of each shift in the 2 principal sites, I think.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mayor. The majority of the people do attend the sites in the first 2 to 3 hours of their opening times. And then the last hour is generally very slow, and that's pretty consistent over all 4 landfill sites.
Community.
She's got gremlins in her computer.
Sorry. So that was the main focus behind it. It's a cost per service. You know, it's a necessity. It's a service that we need to provide, and it's about trying to do it as efficiently as possible. I guess the point about this is it is a trial for a 3-month period. It's a trial over the quieter months of the year as well, and I guess it's just a matter of seeing how it plays out. If there is a significant impact on the community, then we'll relook at the service as we
Assess that through you, Mayor. How will you assess the impact on the community?
comments,
Okay.
usage times. It may retract even more, like you alluded to, Councillor Roundtree. I guess it's just about trying to deliver an efficient, cost-effective service without impacting a significant number of people.
So just a follow-up question for that is if now the time is 1 hour earlier, then then the argument could then be made that last hour before the new cut-off time will also go backwards, and then you might say, oh, we should cut it back again. So I just don't see like cutting those times back. I mean, I can understand why you're doing it. I just would like to see how a really solid measuring of this and to see whether people are being disadvantaged. Even that 1 or 2 people that might come in that last hour, it's still actually probably really useful for them to get there.
Through the Mayor, thanks. The other option that we have discussed is the potential to incorporate some sort of service by appointment, where being Taylor Bend and Meningie, where the majority of our staff are located, people are able to make an appointment, and the council Confact staff would open the dump for a particular person, and then close the dump and away we go. So that would be another option as part of a trial as well.
Okay, that would possibly be useful.
I'll move this way, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Coleman's got a question, but I'll look for a seconder next.
I'm happy to second it.
Councillor Coleman, though, you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question and then we're followed by a comment, if I may, through the chair to James. Matt. Too many Jameses.
I know, that's what we've got to make.
Matt, that following the trial, is this trial you mean that you would actually operate these 2 waste transfer stations on these reduced times? Is that your trial you're talking about? Or you put it out to people that you're going to do?
We'd have a community consultation process where we'd notify people that this is what we're going to do. So it'd be more of a notification rather than consultation, and then take stats about the usage as we go over that 3-month period. At the end of that 3-month period, we'll then analyse that, bring a report back to council with how that trial went, and at that point we'll decide to either increase the hours back to where they were or...
May comment. I don't support this because I can see it now. The community is battling to pay its rates and we're going to reduce services. So okay, we'll go with the trial, but I won't be voting for it. I'm sorry, Mr Mayor, I think the hours should remain.
Okay, anyone else? Oh, I've got a mover and a seconder there for the trial.
You want to close debate, Mr Mayor?
You actually will, yes.
Yes, I'll just make the comment. This has been just for 6 or 7 years, changing West Station hours and the way they work. And it's finally, never a decision has been made up until now. So it's sad. At one stage it was talked about shutting Canalpin because, like 5 times they were open, they never had a visitor. So cutting it back, it's a trial, see what happens. And of course, you can complain if you extended it by an hour. End debate.
Thank you. Trying to work out that thing. Okay, councillors, the motion is as it was. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried. So this is carried with councillors Yench, Arthur, Hill, Roundtree and Simmons for the motion, and councillors Taylor and Qualman against. So still carried, thank you.
Just a question, Mayor. Should that motion, and I've spoken too late, but should have, what is the timeline of this trial? 3 months? And then you report back to us in 3 months? Thank you.
Petitions, we have Neil. Kelly is a member of the public. You having a question, or are you just? Is there any? There's no one has submitted a question in any of the versions we take. So there's none. We've had the deputation. Thank you. There's no information document. Councillors, what in the information document would you like to query, question, whatever? Councillor Roundtree.
One question, the traffic counter on Parkin Hall Road, I know I've raised this before, the average daily vehicle count, I think, would be different had they not included at least 3 weeks of school holidays where there's hardly any traffic on Parkin Hall Road. Is it possible to get the breakup of what the 3 weeks of school holidays look like as opposed to the 3 weeks of school time? I just think it throws that number out, and I'm not sure what the purpose of this is for, looking at whether it's a popular road for bitumising later or is it a popular road for grading. Then I think it would be really useful to get that.
Road.
Pardon?
Which is a popular road.
Well, I just think we don't know that now, because
Interesting.
putting something on that road during school holidays when it's not used as much, it might not have made any difference at all, but I know it was raised as a possibility.
No, I was asked about this. We don't particularly pick a road because it's school holidays or not. Well, school
If you're
holidays tend to be on
working
a
out
fair
the
bit.
average daily traffic based on a 6-week period, of which half of that is not used as often, then that's going to throw that number.
Yeah, so certainly, but the thing I found interesting about all 3 roads was the percentage of heavy vehicles in a non-harvest period.
Mm. And the speed.
My ute doesn't go that fast, councillor, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So you, I suppose from internally, the question, Matt, might be, does the notation anywhere point out that part of that period was school holidays? It's going to inevitably happen.
Certainly, I can provide a breakdown of daily, even goes down to hourly if you need to, the metro count system. Generally, I try to avoid putting traffic counts in school holiday periods where I've been previously. I've definitely avoided that or made it clear that that's been part of the stats, but it does skew your figures using school holiday.
So the school holiday period was the 9th of April to the 27th of April. So that's a fair chunk of that time.
Conversely, there's other areas that during school holidays are impacted positively or numbers are significantly increased. So it does skew your figures either way.
Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I found one here of interest.
Yep.
And it's taken 4 or 5 years, and I'd just like to know the update. They've done some work on the town hall roof, and says the installation was panels commencing the 21st of June. Are we looking, when are we going to go online to please.
The solar panels on the whole roof. Question? Are they putting out power yet, or are they just pretending? There you go, councillor. Their understanding is they might be saving the world. Commissioned is the word we're talking about. As you knew, there was a hold up with the structural strength of the roof in that project. So,
Mr Mayor, it's important that we save our running costs on electricity and
Yeah,
energy, for
exactly.
sure.
other questions around the info document? Councillors
Mr.
Hill
Mayor,
and then,
aren't the solar panels up and going here?
well, that's what the question was, and that was
I
the
thought,
answer was yes.
that's shown this morning.
Yeah, well, you know more than I do.
Yep.
Councillor Hill, though.
I don't normally do this because I'm not detail oriented, but I found a typo on page 12.
Oh, that
of the
voice
document.
has gone away on your machine.
It's under 1.2, status of the Canton Pool project, and it's got all costs associated with this defect will be borne by the. Yes, I saw that too. But I assume council, but
No, the contractor, but
contractor,
that's
okay.
actually just a copy and paste of the last one in the
Yeah.
last thing. So I went back and had a look and it was, yeah.
I think it's the contractor, councillor.
And also I would just encourage people to watch the episode of Adelaide on the 8th of August.
You
That
feature
features-
again?
That features the
Yep.
whole Minnie in particular, and
Yep.
then it goes around to Langhorne Creek. But yeah, it's, the council did support a few of the
What
local
channel?
businesses. Channel 9. Council supported them filming Huron Cottage Industries, the Ostrich, Point Malcolm Lighthouse, as well as the people who did private.
They get a photo of the new boat. Not your boat, not the
No.
SES boat, that other boat. It's in town now.
I don't think the Adelaide's filmed that.
Too late for that, or too early.
Yeah. But anyway, it's, yeah. I think about 4:30 in the afternoon on the 8th of August. That's when the episode was screened.
Try and remember. Councillor Arthur, you're wanting to say
Yep,
something?
page 51, last thing, access to council transition package subsidy. Is that where that's put in for the subsidy to cart our recyclables to Adelaide? As per, we didn't put in for the last round, but we put in for this round, and according to the green, it's progressing well, whatever that means. So I'm just wondering who handles that, with that is the Finance Department or the Department of Infrastructure and Assets? Could just give us a little more information on it?
Indications from the front room as we may have received that grant, councillor.
Sorry, Mr Mayor.
We may have received that grant, councillor.
All right,
Been
okay.
told.
Yeah.
Not sure yet.
Thank you. No,
Ashley's got the floor.
Sorry, Ashley.
Any other questions, councillor?
Yeah, there was just one other question. Congratulations on the number of Ks that have been graded, even though we're not using it all.
A little dig.
People don't believe that actually people do read these minutes and that. And I was told on Saturday that they think that's nearly the highest grading that's been done for amount of Ks that's been done for a considerable amount of time.
It may well be. And as the process
So
shows,
hope-
we generally pick them up in winter a bit somehow.
So hopefully we'll be able to keep 6 shifts on the maintenance graders going.
With a roll, councillor. With a roll or two. Any other questions out of the information document, councillors? Okay, there is no more. There is no confidential items in item 16, so therefore I declare the meeting closed at 5:57, actually. Councillors, we have a workshop next week, but I would remind you that it's NAIDOC week next week, and there is some flag raising ceremonies, which I'll try and get to some, and I may ask some people to do some of this. And then the next, that's all next week, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
You must be. Before you go, I'll ask you a question. You had your phone sitting there and you had your. Is that feeding power that you put in?
No, that's internet.
You give a copy of this to Matt.
I can get online. So I use my hotspot, turn that on and it.
I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Because I can't get on. Yeah,
Your peninsula?